You know what, guys? I know this is gonna sound a little crazy, but like, honestly, I kind of feel like Kronos is like a fun guy, you know? To some of you, this might sound crazy, but like, honestly, I kind of feel like Kronos is not that bad. Like, okay, hear me out. I know that like he ate his children and that he was like very evil and that the golden age wasn't really that good for people. But like, have you ever really thought about like the fact that the gods also kind of suck? Like, they're not that good either. So like, honestly, if we can have tyrants that just like kind of ignore us, and if we can have like, you know, a different tyrant that is likely gonna wipe this civilization off the face of the earth, I am honestly choosing the second one. Like, humanity is fucked. Humanity, every single day that goes on, I start losing my faith in humanity, you know? Hello, my name is Freyr. I am your favorite local forest gremlin, a Polish sociology student, and a pop culture enthusiast. And today we're doing something slightly different that I've not done on this channel yet. Because today I have the honor and the privilege to talk about the book that basically raised me and the show that came out of it. As many queer kids raised on, you know, teenage book series, I developed a quite like unhealthy obsession with Percy Jackson and all of the subsequent series of the, you know, Percy Jackson cinematic universe. So as you can probably tell, when I found out about the fact that there are Percy Jackson movies that adapted The Lightning Thief and The Sea of Monsters, I was like, okay, let me watch them. And then I watched them and I never watched them again for obvious reasons. I basically watched them through my fingers the moment I realized like how bad they were. But thankfully, in 2023, there was a show released on Disney Plus, which was the correct adaptation of the first book of the Percy Jackson series, that of course being The Lightning Thief. This time it also had direct involvement from the author of the books, that being of course Rick Riordan. And was this show perfect? No, it was not. I think it had very, very big flaws in some places, but it was such a big step forward from what we had as of like visual film representation of Percy Jackson. Honestly, it was kind of easy to just like look past that, especially on my first watch, because I was just so enamored by the fact that we finally got a piece of Percy Jackson themed media that didn't actively suck. Well, aside of course from, you know, like the books. Child of me that was raised on these books was finally satisfied. So today I want to talk about the first season of that show, as well as the first book. And later, I am also going to be talking a little bit more about season 2 because it is coming. It's coming this December. I'm so excited for it, and potentially also about season 3. You know, we're going to get there. Basically, how this video is going to work is there are going to be 2 sections. The first one, we're going to be discussing The Lightning Thief and the first season of the show. We're gonna be gluing some characters on the board, and this is gonna be our timeline of the most important events that happen. The events from like the show are gonna be in black marker. They're gonna be basically the exact color of this line, and there's also gonna be a blue marker in play, which is gonna be here below. And basically that's gonna be for all of the changes made from the books that actually had like relevance when it comes to the plot. There's actually not gonna be like that many of them, but I still wanted to point out the differences because of course you cannot talk about Percy Jackson without mentioning the books, and it's also impossible to just adapt the book 100% into a show. So I just want to take a look at those differences. I want to see whether they paid off, whether they were good, whether they were bad, all of that. Also, I am filming this a few days after we finally got the trailer for season 2, which genuinely rocked my world. I was so happy to finally get it. It was genuinely so incredible. And we also got the Nico D'Angelo and Bianca D'Angelo castings. All of that in one night, like that is incredible. Also, I do have some like more philosophical thoughts about the Percy Jackson franchise as a whole, but that I'm gonna save for the later part of this video, where I'm just gonna sit down, yap about some shit, you know, that kind of stuff. But quickly before I start my yapping, which is probably gonna be very, very tough to follow, I just wanted to quickly remind you to please subscribe to my channel, like this video, you can comment down below. You can also follow me on all of my socials, which are listed in the description box below. I would really, really appreciate all the engagement that I can possibly get from this video, because from my experience doing content on YouTube and being mostly like known as a Eurovision creator, I feel like I kind of know how this video is gonna do, and it's not gonna be very well. But honestly, at this point, I kind of don't give a shit. Like, I'm just making videos because I like making videos, and these are videos that I am making about stuff that I like. Speaking is not my forte today, but basically, yeah, if you can, please subscribe, please comment down below, and without further ado, let's get into the first season and the first book of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So there are kind of thoughts that I want to kind of get out before we start talking about the actual plot of it all. And the first one is that I basically love every single casting decision that was made in the show, except for one, but we're gonna get there. Basically, I think that the casting was done super correctly. I think every single actor does a phenomenal job of portraying their characters. I think that for how controversial some of the castings were, especially when we found out about them, I feel like they all pretty much paid off. And yes, I am specifically here talking about the Annabeth thing, because some of y'all, I don't know, I was always on this girl's side because she got picked by Rick Riordan, so I just trust him. I know that he knows what he's doing. So I was like, okay, if this is the perfect Annabeth, this is the perfect Annabeth. Leah Sava-Jeffries is incredible as Annabeth. I never doubted her for a second, but honestly, seeing all of that discourse around her casting made me want to root for her even more, because some of you bitches were actually so fucking mean to her. Every single time there is like a white character originally that later gets portrayed by an actor of color, we always get this controversy again. And sometimes to a lesser degree, I feel like the Annabeth one specifically was probably like the big one of Percy Jackson. I don't think that any of the other castings were that controversial, because I think, like, for example, Folia, I feel like most people agreed that she would be portrayed by a person of color. Like, that was kind of the headcanon, even though in the book I think she's white. And I don't really remember there being like that much upset about Grover being portrayed by a POC person. So I don't know, it just really felt like very directed at Leah, and I really, really disliked it. I think some of y'all are creepy as fuck. Just say you're racist at this point. Like, I genuinely, I don't have the energy for it. Oh, and also, I fully forgot to mention that this is going over the plot of everything, so there are spoilers. I just remembered that now. I am so sorry. There are many spoilers in this video. Now, as for the show itself, I think that one of my highlights of it all, like just in general how it was done, I fucking love the line delivery in basically every scene. Like, these young actors that they got to portray the original trio of Percy, Annabeth, and Grover are just incredible at the roles. I love how sassy they get with it. I love just the energy. I love the sarcasm. I love the irony everywhere. It's just, it's perfect to me. I also really love the outros of the show, actually. I typically don't really notice that, but these ones are just really, really gorgeous in my opinion. So that's that, I guess. So now that all of that is out of the way, we can go to episode 1 out of 8, which is of course titled after the very iconic first chapter of Percy Jackson. That, of course, being, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher.
Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood.
My first note on this episode when it begins, I love the narration dialogue that we get as an intro to the show. It just perfectly encapsulates what made the books so special and why that intro is just as iconic as it is. It's perfect in my opinion. I think Walker doing the narration himself is really, really fun too. Everything about that intro is just perfect to me. I think seeing young Walker, young Percy in this case actually, is really, really fun as well. I like that they show the young version of him. I think that the casting for that young Percy is really, really well done as well. And this is something that we're going to talk about a little bit more when we get to later episodes, but I love how many flashbacks this show has. It's one of my favorite things about the actual show, but I love how kind of the backstory of Percy's problems at school, where he sees, a Pegasus on the roof, or a big rhino. I forgot what those things are called. I know they're from book 2 and they're like a creation of Hephaestus, I believe. They're like the big things that spit fire. I don't remember what they're called. I think that was one of those. And how he basically draws them. I think that is such a cool detail. And this is something that the show kind of expands on in comparison to the books because, of course, in the books, we don't really get Percy as like a drawer, as an artist. And here, he is one. You know, he's drawing all of those monsters that he keeps seeing, and I think that's incredibly cool. I also love the way that dyslexia is shown in the show, like how the letters are just constantly moving and switching places. I think that is such a cool visual. After we get an introduction into Percy and Grover, who I should probably put on the board right now. Here they are. We have Percy and we have Grover. We get our first flashback. During this like introduction scene, we also get to see how Percy and Grover met. We now have them on the board. By the way, if my handwriting is not readable for you, I am so sorry. That might be an issue. But either way, I'm gonna try and like, I don't know, work something out. But basically, another thing that I really love about how they meet is that Grover seems to be preparing Percy with the Myth and Magic cards, which is something that, of course, we see mentioned in a pretty like significant role in book 3. However, I'm actually glad to see it here. I think that's going to be such a fun connection between Percy and Nico. And yeah, I really love this introduction. I love everything about it. So we got our first flashback of the entire show, which is Sally Jackson, who is, of course, the perfect mother, the best mother to ever exist in any fictional media, like genuinely any, and how she took Percy to the Met Museum and they are over there admiring, I think it's a statue of Perseus, and she tells him the story of how he killed Medusa, but also shows compassion towards Medusa, which I love. I love how this is like a kind of like I love how Sally just basically says that if you are labeled a monster, that doesn't mean that you actually are one. I think that's just beautiful in my opinion. I stan Sally Jackson.
Oh, mother. My mother.
I love this whole scene of like Sally and Percy in the museum, but that is obviously a part of the scene where Percy and his class from Yancy Academy with, of course, Professor Brunner are in the Met Museum for like some coursework or whatever. I don't really remember what it was. I think it was just like a field trip. And basically he is over there remembering, you know, a very sweet moment with his mom. And then, you know, he gets laughed at. Professor Brunner gives him a pen because he clearly forgot it. All that. And then later, we see him stand up to Nancy Boba Fett. And that is a very interesting scene in my opinion. So basically, Nancy is like a bully. I didn't prepare a card for her because she's just irrelevant. But she's kind of like a bully, especially towards Grover. And Percy is basically a very, very impulsive person. So like when he sees Nancy like bullying Grover, I don't remember exactly what she was doing. I think she like threw a sandwich at him or something. I might be thinking that all up. But basically, he uses his powers to throw her into a fountain. Of course, he doesn't know that he has those powers. I think the way that it's done, like the water just kind of grabs her from the back and it just genuinely looks like, if you watch that scene and don't pay enough attention, it kind of looks like he just did it with like force, like in Star Wars, you know, where they kind of like controlled like gravity, I guess. I don't really know what that was, but basically that's kind of how it looks like. It's very easy to miss those water details from the back, but I think that is very cool, and I think it's a great like imagery of that very iconic scene, honestly, from the books. Okay, and then we get to the real deal. Next, we meet Mrs. Dodds. This is a very, very fucking cool reveal. Like the way that she just kind of walks through the crowd and slowly, as like people pass her, unveils more of her like monstrous features. I feel like that is just genuinely such a cool visual. However, one thing that I do not necessarily like is how fast her like defeat is, I guess. Percy stumbles, accidentally opens up a sword and just like stabs her, but also like on accident. Like I feel like that scene in the book had a little bit more like intention. Like he actually, if I remember correctly, because I read that book again, like I think 2 weeks ago, so I might be misremembering stuff, but I think there was a little bit more action. Here he just kind of falls. She's like over him and he accidentally stabs her. And she just dies. Like that is kind of anticlimactic. So basically that happens. He kills Mrs. Dodds, but I'm not gonna cross her off because if you haven't seen the show and you're still watching this video, which I am judging you for, basically Percy kills Mrs. Dodds and he's like, hey guys, did y'all see that Mrs. Dodds turned into a monster? And everybody around him was like, who? Who's Mrs. Dodds? No one remembers. And he's like, hey, so something is wrong. And basically he goes into the principal's office after the trip is over. He goes there with Grover. And this is where basically we see the only Rick Riordan cameo in the show. Honestly, I was kind of expecting a little bit more of his cameo. Like he's just over there sitting in the background of this principal's office. I'm like, okay. Could he have, like, at least have a line or something? I feel like that would be so cool to see. But basically, this scene is very painful because this is where Percy experiences betrayal because he's there with Grover and he's like, I didn't touch Nancy. I didn't do anything to her. And Grover is like, hey, so I saw what happened. He did push Nancy. And Percy is like, I'm sorry? Like, what do you mean? I didn't push Nancy. But Grover is like, no, you did. And basically, Percy gets expelled. And after that, he has a chit-chat with Mr. Brunner, who is his favorite teacher, as previously mentioned. And basically, Mr. Brunner says some like cryptic shit at him. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about to me? Like, I don't understand. I don't think I'm special. I don't need all of that pep talk. I just got thrown out of like yet another fucking school. And you're over here telling me that I think I didn't, but actually maybe I did push Nancy. Like, what is all of that supposed to mean? So basically that scene passes and he gets into like this ugly truck and goes back home. And here is the first like difference, I want to say like major difference from the books, because in the books, Percy gets to finish his school year. He knows he's gonna be expelled and that he's not gonna like come back to Yancey for the next year, but he does finish his year, and there are more like scenes to kind of show that there is something going on and that maybe Grover and Mr. Brunner are like involved in it. Here it's not, he just goes home and that's literally like that all of that happens in the first 10 minutes of the show. Like it's so quick, so quick. I feel like one of my main issues with this show is actually how the pacing is done, because sometimes some of these scenes, girls, give me a little bit more time. Like especially on a rewatch, it's so clear that some of those episodes are just so rushed. One of my main hopes for the future season is that the episodes are longer, because there's so much to be done, especially with the upcoming books. There's so much content there, and I just want to see all of it. I don't want to feel like the story is being rushed. And this episode kind of does feel rushed, honestly. And this is another difference from the books, because basically in the books, Grover is not the reason why Percy gets expelled. Percy just gets expelled because he like harmed Nancy. He threw her into a fountain. And they are basically going back together to New York on a bus, and they see the three fates, of course. And that is a very famous scene from the book because it kind of signifies a lot of stuff. We're gonna get into that when they actually appear in the show, but that is something that I do want you to keep in mind, because that is a change that I honestly don't really understand why it happened, but I'm gonna discuss it in more details when we get to the episode where it actually happens. So we basically move on forward. We are chopping through the scenes, and we land in Percy's apartment, where he lives with Sally Jackson and Gabe Ogliano, which is such a fucking crazy surname to give to a character. I kind of hate that I have to put Gabe on the board, but he kind of has some importance to the story, so I'm just gonna do it. He is basically Sally Jackson's partner, and he's not Percy Jackson's father. And he, in the books, is just a piece of shit. He is a fucking asshole. In the books, this guy is not only manipulative but also abusive. There's a lot of hints towards domestic violence. He threatens Percy the first time he sees him when he's back from Yancy. He threatens his mother. So like he's just a fucking asshole, honestly. I just feel like the show made Gabe like very just like useless. He's just very tame. He is not harmful in any way, shape, or form. He's just a useless parasite. That's all he does. And the scene where we get introduced to, of course, Mr. Gabe Agliano, we see him like, I think he's watching like some horse race or something, and he's like doing poker on his computer. Basically, he has like an argument with Percy, but it's nowhere near like as violent as in the books. Here, he's just this very helpless little idiot, honestly. And honestly, that's the version of Gabe that I prefer, because the thought of Sally Jackson possibly living so many years with an abusive piece of shit honestly doesn't really help my mental health all that much, and I don't like it. So I much rather her live with like a useless piece of shit than an abusive piece of shit. Although we don't know if he's not abusive, actually. It's never specified in the show. The show just kind of avoids the topic altogether. But basically, they argue, and we get to finally meet the real star of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. That, of course, being Sally Jackson.
Mom.
I just want to say that in my notes, for this specific scene where we get introduced to Sally Jackson, like for real, outside of the flashback that we've seen of her before, I have written, and I quote, "The logical scene, Sally Jackson, I would die for you. The parallels with that song, holy shit, she is the perfect mother." And did I lie? Did I lie? This scene is one of my favorite scenes of the entire show. Like, yes, Sally Jackson. Yes, I also sit on my balcony when it's raining outside and listen to Olivia Rodrigo while sobbing. Yes, I do. I love this scene so much. I think it shows so much sadness that Sally Jackson has inside of her, but also she's just feeling everything around her, and then she just kind of snaps out of it and is always there to protect Percy, who is like the one precious thing in her life. And it's just, I think the way that the show handles Sally Jackson is probably my favorite thing about the entire show. Her character is done so well. They genuinely do her justice, but they not only do that, they also expand her character. And we're gonna get to that a little bit more. She has so much more to do in this show, and we see so much more of her. And I genuinely am so happy that that is the case, because she is probably one of my favorite characters out of the entire franchise. Like, genuinely, Sally Jackson, we salute you. So basically, Sally is just happy that her son is back home. And she has a short little, I don't even know if you want to call it an argument, because Gabe is just a helpless little idiot. He doesn't really know how to stand up for himself. It kind of seems like Sally kind of dominates him in that scene. Like, she is doing whatever she wants, and he just kind of has to accept it, which is kind of very, very fun to see, because I love Sally standing up for herself. Anyways, basically she's like, okay, Percy and I are going to this beach in Montauk, and you basically have no choice. You little sucker, we're going. And they go to Montauk. This is like a place that they used to go when Percy was young, and this is the place that they always go to. I love the design of that place. It's so like, in the books I remember it being like described as like a little destroyed, a little bit old. And I love how it's done, but also the inside of it is just like so cozy. Everything about it is perfect. I would go there. But basically they go there in a storm. They drive in a car, and we see our very first dream sequence. Basically, Percy has these dreams that are nightmares where something or someone is trying to communicate with him, and he has his first dream. I love the way that these dreams are done. I just love the setting for them, and I love the way that the voice speaking to Percy is done. It genuinely, it looks like some sort of like demonic ghostly creature, but we don't really know what it is, and it has like a lantern, and it's just like, okay, what the fuck is that? I mean, if you've read the books, you know what that is, but like, you know, if you're watching the show and you have not read the books, you're gonna be wondering, what the hell is that? My another note after they arrive in Montauk is Sally is the highlight of the show. This actress is literal perfection. The emotional depth she shows. Oh, and the little prank Percy plays on her. Oh, I will start crying. And I did. That little prank, their relationship, it's just like, I love how the show just wastes no time in establishing that Percy and his mom genuinely love each other. This is another like change from the books. Not much really happens here, but basically we have a talk. Sally and Percy talk, and Sally tells Percy about his father, who we don't know. He's an absent father. He went away at sea and disappeared. And she's like, he was unlike any man I've ever met before because he was not a man at all. He was a god. And Percy is like, come again? And this is one of, in my opinion, the funniest lines in the entire show.
You fell in love with God? Like Jesus?
That is like the one moment of the show that I just always burst laughing at. It's so funny. So basically he doesn't believe her. And he's like, yeah, I know something is wrong with me, but I don't need you to like fake stories about why it's like wrong. So basically he's like, okay, I know that there's something wrong with me. I know it, but you don't have to like fake stories to make me feel better about that. No, I know something is wrong and I don't know what it is, but like, please don't do that. And Sally is like, no, listen to me, no, Percy. And then we meet Grover yet again. And he's like, basically he walks into the door. Sally is like mad because she asked for more time with Percy. And basically Grover and Sally are like exchanging very, very heated sentences, let's call it. And Percy's like, Grover. And Grover's like, what? And Percy's like, why do you have half a goat in your pants? Because turns out, what a shock, that Grover is a satyr. Basically, he is a half human, half goat. You know, that creature from the Greek mythology and I think a few other mythologies, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know. Basically, Grover is a satyr and he's like, so the important thing is not to panic. And that is another fucking hilarious line in my opinion. Like, the actor that they chose for Grover is just perfect. I love Arian so much. He does such a good job as Grover. I cannot wait to see him in season 2. Basically, Grover's like, hey, so yeah, I know that Sally asked for like more time with Percy to spend and to like explain to him everything, but like we don't have time because there's something coming to kill you, Percy. And Percy's like, oh shit. And basically we hear some scary noise and we're like, okay, we gotta get out of here. So they all go into a car and they start driving towards a certain place called camp. And in the car, Percy and Grover have another exchange with Sally sometimes interjecting. And basically, Percy learns what camp is. This is like the safe place for demigods, for half-bloods. And he also learns that the thing that is chasing them is a Minotaur, like the actual Minotaur. And he is wearing boxers. And listen, I think that is funny because in the books, he is wearing boxers, but also I didn't see them like at all during any of the Minotaur scenes because these scenes are so goddamn dark. Like, I know that they're happening at night, okay, I get it, but like, why do they have to be this dark? You basically have to like watch this part of the episode on just like full brightness, and then maybe you will see something. But like, it doesn't really help. So basically, the Minotaur attacks them. It destroys the car. We cause a collision. I think someone dies because they use another, like, I think it was like a truck or something to like slow down the Minotaur or whatever. And I am pretty sure that that just killed somebody. Like, that looked deadly. And we get to our Minotaur fight. And we get to another very, very emotional scene where basically Sally says goodbye to Percy because she knows that in order for them to make it to camp, she is gonna have to distract the Minotaur to give them a chance. And she takes Percy's red coat and decides to basically distract the Minotaur's attention with it and also with the smell, because the Minotaur smells a demigod. So he's like, hey, I'm gonna go kill it. And basically there is a very, very, very emotional scene where she kind of says to Percy that he is unique. He's one of one. He's the only one. It's a really, really sad scene. Yeah, basically she dies, but she doesn't. And basically the Minotaur shows up, right? He shows up. He's very fucking scary. Like, he's well done. I mean, if there are any like CGI flaws on him, I wouldn't be able to tell because it's so fucking dark. But he is definitely intimidating. And basically, Sally Jackson dies. I am not gonna cross her over because if you know what happens next, you know that that would be pointless. And then Percy, you know, because he's an impulsive kid, just goes in and is like, hey, I'm gonna kill this fucking Minotaur. And kill him, he does. That fight scene is actually very epic. It doesn't have like any underscore or like witty lines woven in between. It's just him and that Minotaur going at it and just sounds of like genuinely like fighting. I think that scene is so good, and you actually can see it pretty well because there is the broken car in the background and it has like lights and they are still on. So basically you probably can tell everything that is happening throughout the entire fight, which is good. The Minotaur dies. Percy kills it with one of its horns, and Percy and Grover make it to camp. Percy is exhausted, obviously, because he just lost his mother and fought a fucking monster. And he basically faints, and we see a silhouette of a certain someone sitting on a horse. That certain someone we're gonna meet in the next episode. But my, I guess, thoughts about episode 1 are that it is, in my opinion, a really, really good introduction episode. I think it's a little too fast-paced in places, especially in the beginning, because the story just goes on so quickly. Like by minute 10, we are at Sally Jackson's apartment. That is too quick, in my opinion. I feel like you could set some more like mystery around Percy's identity if he stayed at Yancey a little longer, like he does in the books, and finishes his school year. But honestly, that's okay. I think that the later half of this episode is genuinely perfect, with maybe some issues with like lighting and stuff, but just honestly, all of that I am able to overlook because Sally Jackson is basically in all of those scenes. So that just basically equals a perfect scene. I think that is what you need in order to have a perfect scene in this show, is you need to have Sally Jackson. So now we have our first important event of the season, that of course being Sally Jackson's death, because this is very, very important, especially to Percy's story. And this is going to be referenced a lot. And with that, basically, we move on to episode 2, which is probably my favorite episode of the season.
You drool when you sleep.
So we open up episode 2. Percy is half asleep and he sees a silhouette of a girl, I wonder who says to him, "You drool when you sleep." That is iconic. And that is, of course, a very, very famed line from the books. And I'm so happy that I made it into the show. But basically, Percy ends up waking up and Grover is next to him. They have a little talk about what happened, because he kind of is like, was that all of like a dream or what? And then turns out, no, his mom is actually dead. And he did kill the monster that killed his mother. And he now has a Minotaur horn as a trophy, because that's basically what happens most of the times when you kill a monster. There is a trophy left behind from it. He's like, okay, if I'm at this camp, I have to go and find my dad, because my dad is surely gonna be here, right? And Grover's like, it's not that simple. But Percy, the impulsive kid that he is, basically is like, okay, fuck that. And he goes and kind of starts exploring camp. Well, mostly the big house. And he meets Dionysus. But before we get there, the design of the Camp Half-Blood in this show, like, I want to go there. I want to live there.
Let me in. Let me in. Let me in, please.
It's so fucking perfect. It's so well done. It encapsulates everything I love about Camp Half-Blood. It's the perfect place. I couldn't have imagined camp better. The lake, the colors, the cabins, everything is just perfect. But back to Percy and Dionysus. He basically meets Dionysus, who is, of course, the Greek god of wine and theater and a couple other things. And Percy's like, hello, I'm looking for my dad.
Where's my dad? I'm all alone.
And Dionysus is like, huh? Your dad? And it's like, yeah. My mom told me that my dad was a god and this is like a place for demigods, so I'm sure he's gonna be here, right? Can you tell me where he is? And Dionysus is like, hey, what's your name? He's like, Percy Jackson. He's like, oh, you're my son. And Percy's like, oh, okay. Hi, Dad. And basically Dionysus is like, oh, hey, good to see you. Can you bring me some wine? And Percy's like, oh, is that all you have to say to me? Like, this is the first time I'm meeting you and you want me to bring you a fucking six-pack? Dionysus is like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. And then Mr. Bronner walks in, or as we should probably call him, Chiron. Here we go. We have Chiron on the board. Basically, who Chiron is he is an immortal centaur. He, in Greek mythology, trained some of the best demigods and half-bloods that you basically will hear about. Like, I think he trained Achilles. He probably had something to do with like Perseus, or, basically you think of a hero from Greek mythology, Chiron probably trained them at some point in their life. And Chiron is, as you might have noticed before, a centaur. He's a half human, half horse, and he walks in and Percy is like, what the fuck? And Chiron's like, hey, Percy, you woke up, good. And Percy starts complaining about the fact that Dionysus is his father, and Chiron's like, oh, no, Dionysus is not your father. And he goes, well, I could be. And Chiron's like, okay, but are you? And this is like, nah. And basically Chiron explains to Percy that basically sometimes gods use demigods in order to do stuff that they cannot do themselves, because Dionysus was sent to Camp Half-Blood for flirting with a forbidden nymph. And he now has to serve there for 100 years and cannot drink wine during that period. So he was basically trying to use Percy to get some alcohol in his system. Okay, so basically Chiron walks Percy around camp and he's like showing him around, and I have another note here from when I was watching and taking notes, which is just saying, I want to be there. Because that set is so beautiful. It's so good. It genuinely encapsulates everything that I imagined Camp Half-Blood to be. It's perfect. So we go along and Chiron shows Percy cabin 11, which is the Hermes cabin. And there he basically introduces Percy. Percy's like, no, don't, because he has social anxiety. And Chiron still does it. And Percy meets Luke Castellan. Luke Castellan, if you didn't know, is the inspiration behind this red thing I drew on my face today. I know it doesn't look like it. I know it doesn't, but I just did it anyways, because why not, honestly. And basically Luke becomes like a friend to Percy. He kind of shows him around camp as well, kind of tells him a little bit more about how camp works and like what they do there. And he is like a bigger like brother to Percy, honestly, and that's really cool. We also meet Clarice, who immediately is very rude to Percy. So basically, Clarice is a daughter of Ares, and if you don't know, basically Ares is the god of war, meaning that she is very violent, and she heard about what Percy did at the border of camp, and she's like, I don't believe it, little fucker. And basically she kind of threatens him, and then Luke is like, hey, knock it off, Clarice. And she's like, okay, whatever. And we find out that that is because Luke is like the best swordsman at camp. He is the son of Hermes, but he's also very, very great at fighting with swords. At the same time, we get to see some Grover side activities where he goes and sees a nymph, which I assume is supposed to be his mom. But I don't know. I just love the design of that nymph. And he goes to basically talk with the Cloven Council, which is the council of satyrs and other like nature spirits. I mean, Cloven because, you know, satyrs and they have like little hooves. Basically, he has some questions that he needs to ask them about what happened at the border. So yeah, he basically goes and he asks them. We also hear a very interesting thing in this episode about glory. This is not something that was brought up in the books at all. Basically, how the demigods look at it is, well, Luke explains it. Basically, you go on missions and fight monsters and do heroic shit, basically for the purpose of getting glory, because then others won't mess with you, and potentially your godly parent might like notice you. So basically, Percy's like, hey, I'm gonna need some of that glory because I want to know who my parent is. And also, I have some things to say to him. And Luke is like, sure, we can work on that. We're gonna see what you're good at. And he basically walks him through some camp activities that make, you know, test what he's good at. He tries archery, which is really fun. He tries working in like, I forgot the word, but like where the Hephaestus kids are, you know, making stuff. That is a long, long day. And after that, they go and sit and eat dinner. And basically, Percy also learns about the offerings that you can make to gods, where you can like burn some food and maybe they'll listen to you. If you burn some food, maybe you can communicate with someone. And there is a very, very fucking sad scene. I sobbed my eyes out when I first saw it, where he takes the candy that his mom gave him when he came back and he burns it in order to communicate with her and just like send her a message. Yeah. We need to protect this boy at all costs. So after he comes back from burning candies that his mom gave him to communicate with his recently passed mother, Pain, basically he encounters Clarice and her two little friends whose names we don't know. And they're like, huh, loser, we're gonna go and show you where your place is. So they take him to the toilet and try to stuff his head inside one of those toilets. But suddenly, the water in that toilet sucks up and then it kind of just flows out of it, hits Clarice and her two little brother and sister, you know, basically the nameless Aries kids. And she's like very, very embarrassed, obviously, because like, what the fuck was that? And by the way, the water is like very brute, like they get hit with it. And he's like, I don't know how I did it. And then they basically run away, these kids, and Annabeth shows up for the first time. This is where we meet Annabeth, like for real. We have Annabeth, and she's basically over there witnessing everything that's going on. She's been observing Percy because she wants to know whether he is gonna be good enough for something. We don't know what that something is, but she's basically being like very sassy with him, and he's being like, what the hell? What do you want from me? So the next day, Luke is explaining to Percy who Annabeth is. Turns out Annabeth is basically like his little sister. She's the daughter of Athena, so she's very smart. And they have a long history together. And she has been looking for somebody who's going to be like the sign that she's going to be able to go on a mission. Basically, she really wants to prove herself and she wants to go on that mission. And she's basically judging everybody who comes to camp in order to see whether they're gonna be fit for that mission and they're gonna be like her gateway into the world. And she thinks Percy might be that person. And we also get explained what the forbidden children are. Basically, when you have the 12 main Olympians, you have Zeus and Poseidon, and you also have the 13th Olympian, which is of course Hades. These three gods are so powerful that they made a pact to not have mortal children because they were just too powerful. Basically, in the books, it's alluded that like some of Hades's children might have started World War II, and that's why that pact was made. But recently, there was a breach of the pact when Zeus had a daughter. Her name was Thalia, and basically she died when she was trying to get into camp with Luke and with Annabeth. And she was also turned into a pine tree. And Percy's like, interesting. But we don't really get to talk about that too much because it's time to play Capture the Flag. Basically, this is a game where the entirety of camp divides into two teams, and they just try to capture the flag of the other. They have weapons and all that. It's a lot of fighting. Technically, there's no maiming and no magical objects, but in the book there are. So like, that's a little change from the books. It's pretty irrelevant, honestly. But basically, Annabeth is like the master strategist of it all, and she has a plan for this specific capture the flag. So she walks Percy to his like station that he's supposed to be guarding, and she kind of talks with him. There is a very cute moment when she kind of like helps him fix his armor, and then she just kind of leaves him. We also see her magical object that she has, which is of course her little cap, which when she puts it on, she's basically invisible. So she does that, and we run along. We see Percy being very bored, and that is just like, it's so funny because it's just genuinely perfect, in my opinion, for like Percy as a character. Like, he's over there doing Fortnite dances. He is over there, like, I think he's taking a piss at one point, and he's also like found some like lizard that he's petting, and he's like, oh my god, what a fun lizard. Then he's asleep, and suddenly the three Ares kids that he humiliated with closet water basically come at him and are like, hey, fuck you. And he's like, hey, no maiming, no maiming. And Clarice, who of course leads them, is like, I guess I'll lose dessert privileges for a while, which is such a cunty line. And she basically hits him with her spear, which is a magical object, and it sends like electroshocks. So he gets shocked and he starts running away, as everybody would. Clarice is just kind of that bitch in this scene because the way that actress, I think her name is Dior, the way she just grabs that spear, laughs like she's about to just have some of the best fun she's ever had in her life, and goes attacking this kid. She is a psychopath. That scene where Clarice gets to fight with Percy is some of the best like acting in the show because it shows so well how Clarice is. And then Percy breaks her spear, which is a gift from her father. It's a magical object. It's very precious. And Clarice is like, fuck you. She attacks him again, but the game of Capture the Flag ended. And basically, the team that Percy was on won because he distracted some of the Ares kids so that his team could steal the opposing team's flag. He wasn't aware of that plan. Neither were the Ares kids, clearly. And Annabeth shows up next to him and is like, hey, good job. And he's like, so you've been here the whole time. Why didn't you help me? And she's like, you didn't, I didn't really want to intervene. You didn't need my help. And she helps him stand, and she's like, hey, I'm sorry. And she pushes him into the water. For some reason, I don't really understand why. Because in the books, it's done very, very differently. Basically, Percy gets attacked by a monster. I don't remember exactly what it was, but like he gets attacked by a monster, and then he walks into it isn't the lake. It's like a small river. A small little river. Let's call it a river because English is not my friend today. And he basically, that's where everybody's like, hey, water heals you. What the fuck? Here, he just kind of gets pushed into the water, and suddenly all of his like injuries heal. And how does Annabeth know that? like I know that she's smart, but I don't know if she was like that smart in the books where she would just like be able to tell that Percy is a kid of Poseidon. Yeah, I kind of spoil it, I guess, because Percy, when he's in the water and all of his injuries heal, he gets claimed. We see a big trident basically appear atop of his head, and we learn that Percy is indeed the kid of Poseidon. This scene is kind of epic. Genuinely, it's so cool to see it like really like executed so well to such perfection. It's really, really good. And that is our second really important event. Percy gets claimed by Poseidon, the god of the sea. And if you remember what we were talking about before, this is a forbidden kid. So like he's in trouble. And we very, very quickly learn from Chiron that his dad and Zeus are at war because something that belongs to Zeus was stolen. And Zeus might just start thinking that Percy is the person who stole that thing. And Percy's like, what the fuck? I wasn't even there. Chiron is like, I know, but like Zeus is paranoid. Like basically he's gonna, you know, think that you stole it no matter what, because you are now claimed by Poseidon, and Zeus is accusing Poseidon of trying to overthrow him by stealing the symbol of his power, that of course being his master bolt. And Percy's like, hey, I'm not going to retrieve that bolt or whatever. I am not helping my father. He's done nothing for me. Like, if that's what you want me to do, I am not doing that. And Dionysus starts yelling at him, being like, hey, little kid, little fucking bastard, you're gonna go there and you're gonna go and retrieve that bolt. Percy's like, no. Dionysus is like, you're his son. And Percy's like, no, I'm Sally Jackson's son. And Dionysus is like, who's Sally Jackson? Percy, of course, goes, what the fuck, you bitch? And basically then Grover shows up because Grover has figured out what happened to Sally Jackson. And Grover basically says to Percy, hey, your mom is alive. And Dionysus and Chiron look at him and like, what the hell? You weren't supposed to tell him that. Coincidence, because the mission is supposed to lead Percy to the Underworld. And that is where Sally Jackson is. She's not dead, but she's being held captive by Hades, the god of the dead. And it's alleged, I guess, like it's assumed that Hades is the one who stole the Master Bolt. So basically that is what provokes Percy to go on the quest, because he's like, I don't give a shit about no fucking Master Bolt. I just want my mom. And that is the end of episode 2, because he accepts the quests, and that's where we kind of just end the episode. This is probably my favorite episode of the season. I think that the pacing in it is just really, really good. Getting more time to spend in camp is also great, and I just love how camp is done in this show. I just honestly would love just a show based on like some random demigods living in that camp, being like, hey, this is what we do, and here's what we're doing, and here we're like doing stuff with nymphs, and here with satyrs, and here we're flying on Pegasuses, and they're trained. I would just love like a show that's just like a note from like a diary from like a life of like a random demigod living at camp. I feel like that would be so sick to see. But of course, that is not where we get, because we go to episode 3.
She fought valiantly, and she met a hero's fate.
She met a pinecone's fate.
And we kick off episode 3 with Percy visiting the Oracle of Delphs, which is basically like a dead body of a woman that used to be the Oracle. And yeah, it's a creepy scene, because the spirit possessing that mummy, basically when it gets unleashed and it tells Percy his prophecy, it takes the form of Gabe, which is such a funny detail, honestly. I forgot that also happens in the books. That's crazy. So basically she gives him a prophecy, which I did not make a note of. Basically it's something about how he's gonna be betrayed by somebody that he calls a friend, and how he's supposed to go south towards the god that has turned. And there we see a scene where Chiron has selected some of the best demigods at camp for Percy to choose from as his companions on his quest, because in its tradition, quests are typically done by 3 people. He chooses Annabeth because, and the reason he cites is that he needs somebody who's not going to be afraid to push him down the stairs if the quest requires it, and he believes Annabeth could do that. I guess fair reasoning. And the second person that he goes for is Grover, which is really, really cute. And we also see Pegasuses in the background, and they're so cute. I would love one. I love horses just in general, but like Pegasuses are so fucking cool. So the crew leaves. We get to see a brief scene of Annabeth saying goodbye to the pinecone tree, which is Thalia. And Percy makes some very, very ignorant comments about Thalia. And Annabeth is like, okay, it's like, whatever. And they go. We get to see them briefly in New York City. And the look that Annabeth gives the city, where they like walk out of the taxi, is genuinely, she's like, because it's her first time in like actual civilization, like since she was like 7. She's been trapped at camp basically for 6 years. She's lived there. And now she finally gets to experience the real world. And she is coping pretty well. But there are also some very, very cute scenes a little bit later on. Basically, they get into a bus that is supposed to take them to Los Angeles, which is where it's believed that Hades resides. She goes to buy some snacks. They have a brief argument because Percy's like, hey, I'm the one who got the quest. I should probably be leading it. And Annabeth is like, no, I'm leading it. They start arguing. Grover does a very, very iconic thing. That, of course, being singing the very iconic Consensus song.
Oh, golly, the road's getting bumpy because I got me some friends who just can't get along.
This scene is just everything to me. It's perfect to me. I love it. It's so fun. But basically, Annabeth wins the argument and she goes and buys some snacks. And there is a very, very cute scene where she's like being basically a child about this. She's looking at some sweets and she's like, okay, which one do I take? Which one do I take? I'm just going to take all of them. And she does. And I think that's very, very cute. It genuinely shows like a human side to her, which we haven't really seen up until that point. So I love that. Bonus points for that. And that is where we encounter the Furies again. Basically, as Annabeth finds out that the Furies are close and that they're very much after Percy, she puts on the cap of invisibility. Sorry, again, English, not my friend today. And at the same time, we also get Grover narrating and kind of explaining to Percy how monsters work and how they can smell a demigod and how when they die, they don't actually die. They just are sent off to where they came from. And after some time, they are able to be reincarnated and, you know, wander the face of the earth again. And that's why we just kind of have to keep on killing them, because otherwise we're all gonna die. Okay, so basically there is a very, very brief scene before the fight where Annabeth talks with Mrs. Dodds, who is of course one of the Furies. I think she is Alecto, if I remember correctly. And basically she offers Annabeth a deal that if she gives them Percy, she's gonna let them go and everything is gonna be fine. Nobody has to be hurt. And Annabeth is like, huh. And she just runs away, and basically they all run away because the Furies are like, trying to kill them. I think 2 of them get killed by Annabeth and Percy, and then Alecto is still chasing them, and then the bus explodes, and they have to run away. Then we have a scene where they are walking through a forest. They're just like wandering, going somewhere because, yeah, it's been literally like 20 minutes, and we've already exploded a bus because there were monsters in it. And Percy and Annabeth get into a fight, and Grover is like, hey, do you guys smell that? And they're like, what the fuck? And basically, Grover leads them to a place where there are some weird statues. Alecto the Fury, that is also Mrs. Dodds, shows up and she's like, hey, I'm gonna kill you. And then another woman comes out of that weird place. She has her face covered by this very, very cunty hat. And immediately we find out that that is Medusa. And basically Alecto is scared, Sar, Grover, and Annabeth. Percy doesn't really know what's happening, but he's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna cover my ass too. Medusa is like, hey, so you can have dinner at my place, or you can be the dinner to this Fury over here. She's not gonna bother you as long as I'm here. So, and Percy's like, okay, you know what? Let's go and eat. So they go and eat. Then we get to see more of Medusa's backstory. I love the way that this show treats Medusa. I genuinely do, because she's a tragic character. Like, she never asks for anything that happened to her. She's genuinely a tragic character. And she gets blamed for what a god basically did to her. That is not very, very fun. And I love that this show just kind of acknowledges it. But I also feel like because that is the way that they decide to handle Medusa, Annabeth really loses favor points because she's just so mean to her. And like, I get it. Your mom is Athena. And Athena like famously didn't like Medusa. Athena is the reason why Medusa is Medusa. But like, sweetie, this is not the correct time to be fucking, you know, cussing out your host. Medusa basically says, Percy, hey, can you come over here, help me? I need to bring something to the table. And she talks with Percy and she offers him to get rid of Annabeth and Grover so that he could continue his quest. And she also talks about how she thinks the gods hurt people and how she's been hurt and how she probably knows that Percy's mom has also been hurt by the gods, which is of course true. But Percy is like, no, you ain't gonna be questioning my loyalty. He runs away and he, Grover and Annabeth hide in the basement. Like, I'm sorry, that's just a stupid choice. Like, I would rather go over there and fight Alecto. Like, we can probably do that. Or like just escape into the woods and you're over here going into the basement, which you don't know if it has like an exit anywhere else. So we're just basically walking into a trap. Okay, I felt Annabeth was like a smart person. I don't know why she did that, honestly. So Grover is like, hey, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna surprise her by using my flying I forgot to mention the shoes. Oh my goodness, I'm stupid. Okay, quick comeback. Look at the beginning of this episode, when Percy is leaving camp and he's like preparing and packing, Luke gives him like a pair of shoes that have basically magic wings. When you say the word Maya, which was Hermes' mother, the wings basically sprout and you can fly using these shoes. And these shoes are later given to Grover. They are intended for Percy to use, but Grover takes them. And Grover uses them in this situation, in this basement, because he's like, oh, I'm going to surprise her from like the top. And then he doesn't because he can't really control it. He's not a very, very like good flyer, I guess. Here we get to see the fight with Medusa. Obviously, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover prevail, partially because of Grover. Like, I love how he basically very much fucks up in that fight from the beginning, and then he's kind of the reason why they win it, because he just distracted Medusa. And then Annabeth was able to put her invisibility cap on her. And then Percy slices her head off, which is really, really disgusting. Later, we of course see Percy and Annabeth argue again. It's kind of like the continuation of the argument from the forest, where Percy is like supposedly scared of who he is. And Annabeth is also like just not helping. And they're just not on the best terms, but suddenly we trust each other because Percy didn't accept Medusa's proposal and neither did Annabeth when it came to Alecto. So they're like, okay, so we're being loyal. And also Grover is kind of like the reason why that conversation goes well, which is great. Like, we love Grover being responsible. We love that. I mean, he's technically like an adult, so he should be. Also, like, we love seeing that. Of course, they used the Medusa head to kill Alecto for the second time already. And then they decide to send it to the fucking Olympus. They take Medusa's head and send it to Olympus, which Annabeth is like, hey, the gods might not like that. And Percy's like, no, don't worry. Like it's a sign that we like love them because we killed the monster in their name, and like, you know, and basically Annabeth is like, okay, I think that's not gonna be the best idea. And Percy says that he is impertinent, which I love, honestly, that line, iconic. And they did send it to Mount Olympus because we then later see Lin-Manuel Miranda deliver the head to Mount Olympus. Of course, he is portraying Hermes. At first, I remember when this casting was revealed, I was like, okay. Also, when I rewatched this show for the purposes of this video, I was just like fresh off of a rewatch of the Little Mermaid remake. So I was kind of in my like Lin-Manuel Miranda hater era, because if you don't know, he was involved with that remake, and there is that one song that fucking seagull sings, which is like a rap about bullshit, honestly. And it's one of the most horrible things I've ever heard. It genuinely sounds like if somebody tried to like emulate Lin-Manuel Miranda, but just couldn't. And yeah, he wrote it. And I remember there was also like a very famous comment on Letterboxd, I think around Little Mermaid, when somebody was like saying that we need to move on from Lin-Manuel Miranda as a society. I personally don't believe that, because like Hamilton is iconic. I don't really know it that well, but I know it is iconic, and I know he did a lot for the theater kid community. But like, honestly, seeing him as a Hermes here was just really, really fucking funny to me. But he is still not the casting that I'm like mad at, because he genuinely looks like Hermes. Like when I close my eyes and I try to imagine Hermes, I see Lin-Manuel Miranda. I now realize that I forgot to put the card for Medusa. That's how you know I'm a professional. So I'm just gonna put the card up and I'm just gonna cross her off because she's already dead. But this is the end of episode 3. I honestly really love that episode. I think that the way that it handles Medusa's story is so good. It's genuinely one of my favorite changes from the book, because in the book, Medusa's storyline is explained, but like it doesn't really have much effect on the viewer. You just kind of read it and like, okay, another monster with some story that's now gonna want to kill us. But here, Medusa is something much more than a monster. She's like a hurt person, and there is a actual reason for her, you know, being the way that she is. And the way that like she's basically just like hurt by the gods. Everybody hates her because of the fact that she was used in a game by Poseidon, and then Athena got mad at her. Like, her story is tragic, and I kind of like that the show emphasizes that. I think that is one of my favorite changes in the show, actually. But from episode 3, we go into episode 4, which is the very, very famous St. Louis visit.
He's super grouchy when he doesn't get enough sleep.
He's super grouchy when he doesn't get enough. Yeah.
This episode starts with a flashback, and I had some really, really fun notes about it that I'm going to read you in a second. But basically, in this flashback, Sally Jackson and Percy, when he's younger, attend a swimming lesson in like a pool, because Sally really wants Percy to learn how to swim. Percy's like, no, I don't like it. And Sally's like, hey, this is going to be very, very necessary for you. And one day I might not be here for you when you need me. So you need to be able to also like, you know, save yourself on your own. And he's like, no, you're always going to be here with me. But the thing is, like, she won't, because she will die. I literally, I think that's what I wrote in those notes. I wrote, okay, excitedly with capital letters, our first flashback, Sally Jackson, I love you. Percy, learn how to swim, goddammit. She cares so much, I will kill myself. You'll always be here. Now you won't, I will jump out of my window. I rest my case. This whole flashback is just the way that Percy just doesn't understand, but Sally, there's so much pressure on her, and she knows how like dangerous his life is gonna be. Oh my goodness. So from that flashback, we go into a night on a train where basically the entire group is sleeping, and well, they're not, but Percy and Annabeth are like talking about Thalia and about Annabeth's backstory, and it's a really, really cool scene because we get to meet Annabeth a little bit more, we get to learn more about her, and I think that's always good. I also love how Percy keeps on being untrusty towards the gods. I feel like that parallels so well with Luke, but we're gonna get there. I just kind of love how their ideologies are like so similar but so different at the same time. It's crazy. We also get explained a lot of different backstories in this episode, actually, because we have Annabeth, we have Thalia, and we also learn about the Satyr's missions to find Pan, which is basically he's the lost god of wild nature, and nobody has seen him for centuries, and basically every Satyr's dream is to find Pan, and they want to have searcher's license because that is what permits them to go on a search for Pan. Grover doesn't have his yet because he has to successfully complete a mission, and basically he wants to get it, and he wants to go and search for Pan. And then somebody is like, hello, are you from cabin X, Y, and Z? I forgot the number of it. And they're like, hey, yeah, that's us. It's like, and the train worker is like, okay. And he takes them to that cabin, and it's fully demolished. Something has broken the window. There's a lot of mess inside. And they're like, what happened here? And Annabeth, Percy, and Grover are like, we didn't do this. And basically somebody apparently snitched on them, like a woman. And there was like police and everything. And they're basically like under arrest. My one question is, if there is a broken like window and basically like a broken wall of a train, how is it still going? Shouldn't you guys be like stopping at the next possible station? And this is where we meet Echidna. I don't have a card for her because she's not that important. I would say, and that might be a brave opinion, but out of like every single monster that we see this season, I would say Echidna is probably the most threatening, because tell me why she's so like ultra cunty, but also she just looks like a white mom that goes to church every Sunday, is slightly racist and homophobic too, and she's wearing this cardigan. It's just so, I don't know. I just feel like the vision is perfect for Echidna here. She looks a little different in the books, if I remember correctly, but like this version of Echidna is genuinely so like, there's something very uncanny about her, and I love that. She, of course, is the mother of monsters, and she keeps on making those monsters. And she has a little monster with her. It's a very, very young little monster that is still learning how to hunt. And Echidna is like, hey, I have 3 little snacks for you that you can hunt. How's that sound? And basically, she's like, okay, I think this is the time that you have to run. And they're like, okay, so we're running. But on their way out of like the part of the train where they are being kept, Percy gets stinged by the tail of that little monster. And it kind of sounds like little monster as in like a Lady Gaga fan or something. Of course, that sting is very, very important for the future of this episode. And so they keep on running away through the train. And there is a very, very funny scene where some people are sitting in like they're part of the train, right? And they're like little sections, and they look out the window. They're like, what is happening? Because they hear some noise, and there's this fucking chihuahua just like running past the corridor, because that's what the mortals see the chimera as, which is the monster, of course. A fucking chihuahua. Honestly, kill that thing with fire. I like dogs, but chihuahuas kind of scare me. So they basically run away, and they decide that it's gonna be the best choice to go to the St. Louis Arch, because it's basically like a hidden temple for Athena. It's a basically like a miracle of architecture or something. I don't really know. Basically, Athena likes that place, and it was like built in her like honor or whatever, and it's meant to be a temple of Athena. And they go in there, and we also see Percy be very, very, very sick. So they go in there. There is a small conversation that Percy and Annabeth have. And also Grover is very disturbed because there are like hunting trophies in there, and that is just not it. I would be too disturbed as well, Grover, I feel you. But basically Annabeth and Percy have like a conversation where basically we can kind of see that they're becoming like friends, and that's really, really cute. But then Percy starts to feel very, very badly, and the gang is like, hey, so he's feeling bad, let's throw him into the water. So they put him in a fountain to try and heal him, but it's not working because it's not running water, like an actual water like thing. It's not a lake, it's not sea, it's not a river, it's a fountain. It's very, very different, and that doesn't heal him. And suddenly Echidna shows up with the Chimera, and they're like, okay, so we have to run, we have to go, and hopefully Athena is gonna protect us. But Echidna like says something telepathically to Annabeth, and she's like, oh, your mother is not gonna protect you guys. So they get onto like an elevator to go to the very top of the arch. Annabeth is like, hey guys, so Athena doesn't like us anymore. She thinks I embarrassed her because I sent that Medusa head to Olympus. And they're like, huh, that doesn't make no goddamn sense. Why would Athena be like embarrassed about that? Athena is just really egotistical, I guess, in this show, and she didn't like that. So we have a problem now because we have a fucking chimera chasing us, and we are at the top of the arch. There are people here, so we evacuate the people, of course. We use a fire alarm, and Annabeth is like, hey, I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna defeat that chimera. And Percy is like, okay, just take my sword. And she takes the sword, but he like pushes her out, takes the sword with him, locks the door behind him, and he's left there alone with Echidna and with the Chimera. Jesus Christ. One thing that I want to point out is I love the effects that they do with the makeup in this episode, because Percy looks like he's about to fucking drop dead at any second. That makeup work on him is really, really well done. But basically, we get to see the Chimera in its full shape and form. It looks so cunty. I would want one of those as like a pet, but like smaller. It's like walking, and it's genuine. It's like one paw in front of the other. I love the Chimera. I think its design is so cool, in my opinion. Percy tries to fight the Chimera, but it's obviously stronger than him. It's really, really difficult to kill. And then the Echidna does like this like little like hand gesture, like she's trying to like, I don't know, kill a mosquito or whatever. And basically a hole in the floor opens and Percy falls through it. So how did she do that exactly? I personally have no idea, but Percy falls through it. And there is a very, very fun scene where he's like falling and water grabs him from like the nearby, I think it's a lake that is near the St. Louis Arch. I am not actually sure. This has been like a running joke in the Percy Jackson community, because in book 1, he jumps from the St. Louis Arch into that body of water. But it's like, if you actually measure it, it's like, there's no way he made that jump and actually survived. So I love how the show makes it so that like it actually makes sense. It's not that he jumped, he fell and then water grabbed him because he has water powers and everything, you know? So basically, water grabs him, he is thrown into whatever that body of water is. I think it's a lake, but I am, again, not sure. Basically, he gets thrown in there, he gets stuck, his foot is stuck under like something, and he doesn't know yet that he can breathe underwater. And then a water nymph, I think it's a nymph, or like what are the ocean nymphs called? I forgot the name. I think it's a Nereid, or one of the Nereids. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I am not a native English speaker, so you have to excuse me if I get some pronunciation wrong. Also, I'm just used to the Polish pronunciation of things. But basically, we get to see a nymph, a Nereid, for the first time, and I really, really loved its design. She kind of looks like a jellyfish almost, and basically she tells Percy to like calm down, that he can breathe underwater. He just needs to calm down. He's over there tweaking because he's like, nah, I cannot. She talks to him and he finally starts like calm himself down. and he takes a breath and he finds out that he can indeed breathe underwater because he is a son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. So that makes sense. And that is basically where we kind of finish episode 4. Episode 4 is one of, in my opinion, the better episodes of the season. I think the whole echidna chase is like really, really cool. I love how we also have those moments to kind of learn more about the characters. I always love to see a little bit more backstory, and I also feel like this episode is just slightly more focused on Annabeth as a person, and I also really love that because so far Percy has had a lot of like growth, but Annabeth has been pretty like standoffish, sometimes mean, especially like the Medusa episode didn't really help her like image at all, so it's nice to see her get vulnerable and, you know, have more time to shine. Even if, of course, Percy ends up being like the main topic of the day because he fucking falls from the St. Louis Arch. He just really likes attention, doesn't he? So that is the end of episode 4. And we still have no like actual like major moments in the story aside from Sally dies and Percy gets claimed. We are going to have some major changes to the story from the book's perspective though in the next episode, and we're also gonna have some more major events in the actual like just story in general in the next episode as well. So that is gonna be our episode 5. Hello, this is day 2 of recording. We are on episode 5, but before we get into that, I do kind of have to preface this section by saying that I am already extremely overstimulated today. So this part of the video might end up looking slightly chaotic. Also, yes, Taylor Swift is to blame because I am filming this on a Tuesday and she decided to randomly, when I was asleep, go on a podcast and announce a new album called The Life of a Showgirl. Like, I am unwell. Basically, if you don't know, I am a massive Swiftie. I already have made 2 videos about different Taylor projects, and I will surely be making some about The Life of a Showgirl. I am so excited for the album, but this is not the video for that. I just kind of wanted to tell you that my head is spinning, my mind is going 100 kilometers per hour, and it is insane. Also, my sister made me this like little orange frog to celebrate that, you know, the album is gonna be orange. I think that's kind of cute. Also, if you do want to see a video from me about The Life of a Showgirl, or maybe even a reaction video where it eventually drops, please tell me in the comments below. I've never done like a reaction video as such, so that would be something totally new for me, but I am honestly down to try it if you guys would be willing to, you know, check it out. So make sure to let me know.
Give me a second. I'm just starting to fight on Twitter here.
But back to episode 5. This episode opens with, you know, we're near the St. Louis Arch. We just basically destroyed it. Well, not necessarily destroyed the whole thing, but like, you know, and we get to see Annabeth and Grover. They're looking for Percy. Grover is like, hey, he jumped from like an insane height. There's no way he survived that wherever he is. And Annabeth is like, nah, I know he survived that. And then we see the Fates for some reason. My first note for this episode is literally, why are the Fates here? Because genuinely, why are they here? In the books, the Fates had a lot of meaning, specifically because Percy is the one to see them. You know, here Annabeth sees them. I don't understand why that's a change. When Percy sees them, basically, I think the overarching like idea of why they even show up is to show the connection between Percy and Luke, and like how one of them has to die in order for Olympus to survive. Here, I just don't understand why they appear so randomly in St. Louis of all places when Percy isn't even here. I also, just for more context, I never really understood why we use the Fates as a method of prophecy. Like, when they cut a string, that means they kill somebody. So like, them cutting a string 5 years early just kind of don't make sense to me. Like, I don't understand why that's a creative choice we made here, but like, honestly, it's fine. I think in the books it's kind of, it's okay in my opinion. But here, I just don't understand why they are here. Genuinely, you could have stuck them in episode 1 and everything would have made sense. they could have, I don't know, appeared when Percy is like leaving Yancey Academy, you know, he's driving in a truck and he sees, you know, the Three Fates and they are over there cutting a string and he's like, what the hell was that? That would be perfect in my opinion. Why Annabeth is the one to see them? I have no idea. So I decided to mark them here because this is where they appear in the books. They appear before Sally Jackson's death. And yeah, I don't understand why this change was implemented, just to like sum this section up. But actually, I don't think that in the show it's that important. Like they just kind of show up and we kind of like never talk about them again. So I guess maybe I'm just, you know, overreaching and making a problem out of nothing. Percy crawls out of the river or the lake or whatever the body of water in St. Louis is. I still haven't Googled it because I am a lazy, ignorant bitch. And we see the reunion of Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. And this is just a really sweet moment because Annabeth, you know, she's been kind of called kind of distant, specifically to Percy. He didn't really think of her as a friend at first, but she is the first person to like hug him. And it's just a really, really sweet moment in my opinion. I really, really love it. And this entire encounter kind of changes Percy's outlook on his dad because, well, the Nereid that Poseidon sent to basically, you know, communicate with Percy, you know, she was sent by Poseidon. So that means that his father actually cares somehow and that he wants to meet him in St. Monica. That's where our heroes have to go in order to talk with Percy's dad. I kind of love this entire scene where they're just like walking down this road and Percy has this like moment of clearance where he's like, actually, maybe my dad isn't like that bad. I kind of like that. It's a really sweet moment. But then we meet another quite important character for the story. That, of course, being Ares. Ares is on the board. He is, of course, the Greek god of war. And he shows up riding this sick-ass motorcycle. And one thing I have to say is that the casting for him is genuinely genius. Like, I have no idea what the name of this actor is. I'm sorry, I don't remember all the names, but like he plays Ares so well. Like genuinely, this is like that Hermes casting. By the way, I didn't glue Hermes on the board because I'm gonna do it later because he appears later. Basically, when I imagine Ares now, I see that actor. Like it's a perfect casting in my opinion. So Ares tells our demigods that he's gonna meet them in a bar, I guess, a restaurant down the street. And they better meet him there because he can help them in their quest. And so they go in there and we see Ares starting fights on Twitter. That was the funniest moment of the entire episode for me. Like genuinely, this whole scene with Ares is just perfect to me. So he basically tells our heroes that he and his girlfriend, let's call her that, were on a date and he left his shield there and he wants Percy and Annabeth to go and retrieve it and he's gonna take Grover as basically a hostage to guarantee that Percy and Annabeth don't just like run away or something. And they are like, okay. At first they don't really want to do it. Percy immediately is just like set off by this god because he basically doesn't like him from the start. And I mean, as he should, but they end up accepting the quest. Also, I forgot to mention that Gabe is a bitch because we also get to see a video that Ares shows Percy on his phone of Gabe complaining to like national TV about how Percy is like a horrible, kid and he probably is behind the death of Sally and of course the destruction of his very, very precious car. Like, girl, Gabe is horrible. So Percy and Annabeth, without Grover because he stays with Ares, go to this very, very creepy looking amusement park. There's this whole like section of this episode where Percy and Annabeth have to like walk through a gate that is like very, very scary and has these like metal gears that seem to be like lowering and like they're gonna kill them. And this is kind of like a trust exercise almost because Annabeth finds out what that is and that is just like a mechanism to like scare away possible people who aren't supposed to be there. And also it's a counting mechanism, because when you cross the gate, there is a number that appears to count who enters and who exits. And Percy panics. He doesn't know what's going on, and Annabeth kind of pulls him out of there with logic. And just in general, this is a great episode for Annabeth. Like, she's gonna have a lot of character building in this episode, and just like, we're gonna see so much more depth to her, which I honestly kind of love, especially after episode 3, because girl, that episode was rough for Annabeth. We very quickly find out that this amusement park was created by the one and the only Hephaestus, who we're gonna meet in a second. We have another scene with Grover in it. Grover stays with Ares, and I kind of love how he just takes Ares and just wraps him around his little finger. It's so funny to me, because he genuinely, Grover is like a master manipulator in this scene. He is over there messing with Ares and pretending to be a fan, and like talking about some like deep cut wars that most people don't talk about, that Ares is like super proud of, and like making basically, making Ares trust him. It's so funny to me. And so basically Ares kind of falls for it. Grover is in control of the situation, which we love to see it. Then we flash back to Annabeth and Percy, and we get the very, very iconic tunnel of love scene. This entire scene is just kind of perfect in my opinion. Like, they swim in a boat in the tunnel of love, and we get to see the projected life of Hephaestus, how he was thrown out of Olympus because Hera thought that he was too ugly, how Aphrodite betrayed him, everything. And it's just, I think it's a really, really smart way of reintroducing, a character that most of us probably know, but if you watch the show and you don't really know what the full story of Hephaestus is, I think it's helpful. And I think it's really, really great to set up the kind of conflict and also Hephaestus's motivations later on. I think that's a really, really genius move, and in my opinion, it also looks very, very good. The ride takes a turn, because after the story is finished, there is like a dramatic turn, and basically we end up in this like room, and the boats get destroyed at the end of it, so they have to jump out, and Percy saves Annabeth, probably using water powers, but also we kind of don't know. And he also says something funny, which I remember being like, okay, because he just kind of says, I'm still figuring this stuff out, when Annabeth asks him if he used his water powers. And I love them together, honestly. This entire episode is just so cool, especially if you are like a Percybeth shipper. I mean, of course, they are not a couple at this point in the show, but like, you can see them working together and kind of like becoming friends slowly. And I think it's such a rewarding journey. And I personally, as a viewer, really, really enjoyed it. So we get another scene with Grover and Ares, where Ares basically starts complaining about his kids and saying that he doesn't really like them. Even like, I guess that kind of also includes like Clarice, which is funny. But honestly, Ares being a bad father is like not that surprising. Like, that is a fork found in the kitchen, honestly. Also, randomly, Athena catches some strays, because Grover is like, she gets all of the credit for everything that she does and how smart and strategic she is, and you don't, when your wars that you create are so cool. And Ares is like, exactly. It's kind of a funny scene, honestly. Grover in power is just perfect for me. I love this little thing for Grover. It genuinely adds so much more to his character. But then we go back to Percy and Annabeth, and we see that in order to retrieve the shield, which is held by this like giant statue, one of them has to sit on a throne that is very likely the same throne that Hephaestus once used to trap Hera, which is kind of crazy. This entire thing was not in the books at all. Like, the Tunnel of Love scene looks so much different there, but honestly, I kind of prefer this version of it. Basically, Annabeth and Percy have like a short argument about who should do it, because it basically means that you're trapped and that you cannot leave this place. You cannot stand up from this throne. And Percy is like, I'm gonna do it. And Annabeth cries. She's very emotional about it. We also get our first seaweed brain of the series, which is crazy. That, of course, if you don't know, is the nickname that Annabeth oftentimes uses on Percy. And yeah, it's just, this scene is just so perfect. It shows their emotional depth so well. And Percy sits on that throne. So he sits on the throne, and there is this very, very cool CGI effect, like when the gold of the throne basically, like, I don't know, starts covering him. It's really, really scary, but also you can see like those little like things like gears almost on his face. It's a really, really cool detail in my opinion. And when he finally is fully trapped in the gold of the throne, the shield drops from the statue, and basically Annabeth is free to leave with the shield. But does Annabeth leave with the shield? Oh no, she does not, because she wants to save Percy. So she starts like doing stuff with the throne, trying to maybe like work out how the mechanism works and try to save her friend, And then we meet Hephaestus. He shows up and is like, hello, you can go now, you have the shield, leave him. And Annabeth is like, no. And basically Hephaestus reveals himself. He tells Annabeth who he is. And basically she gives him a whole speech about how Percy is different from all of the bitter and just mean-spirited gods who only care about their pride. It's a really, really sweet scene where she kind of stands up to Hephaestus, which of course could be deadly because like he's a god. She also mentions how she hates this environment, where you either eat somebody or you are eaten yourself, and how Percy was trained to be different than that, and that's why he's special and why he deserves to be freed. And it's a really, really good scene, and Hephaestus is very, very quickly swayed to Annabeth's side, and he decides to release Percy. He also promises to speak to Athena to maybe, make her less mad at Annabeth, which I honestly also kind of love. Hephaestus in this show, he's just a cutie pie, He tries to be tough, but like he is not. That's just not who he is. And I think that it's really cute to see, a god that isn't like so imposing and threatening. He's just a guy. But basically Hephaestus lets them go. He lets them retrieve the shield. They go back to Ares, and Ares is still being a menace. He's still being mean to Percy. Percy kind of stands up to him. He's like starting to threaten basically the god of war himself, which is interesting. Like, this is a 12-year-old trying to one-up a fucking god of war. Like, that takes balls, honestly. But Ares sends them away, and he also gives them a backpack of like things that they need. This backpack is gonna be quite important later on, and we travel on to Santa Monica. Ares gives them a transport to Santa Monica, which is this like truck that also drives these like really sad animals. Honestly, they're in like really poor conditions. And basically they get in. The episode kind of ends with our heroes, being in the truck, and Grover supposedly has figured out who the thief of the Master Bolt is. And that is the end of episode 5. 2 new additions to the board, that being the Tunnel of Love scene, which I do think is like an important canon event, and also a change for it to the book, which is no spiders. This is actually not that important of a change, honestly, because I prefer the Tunnel of Love in the show, actually. But in the books, there's an entire scene that kind of also demonstrates a vulnerability of Annabeth, that of course being her arachnophobia. Basically, Hephaestus uses these like mechanical spiders, and Annabeth is like terrified of them, And in my opinion, that of course shows, that Annabeth is not perfect. She's not the strongest person ever. She has flaws. But honestly, I kind of prefer this version of Annabeth because it shows so much more emotion and so much more vulnerability that you would be able to see through her fear if the spiders were actually there. So in my opinion, this is actually a good change, and I think that the Tunnel of Love scene is actually pretty important. And just in general, episode 5 is kind of important for plot because we get a transport to Santa Monica, and we start having clues about who potentially the lightning thief could be. But after this episode, of course, we move on to episode 6.
I meant for the people. Oh, them.
This episode opens up with a dream that is also hinting at the reveal of who the lightning thief is. We see again the principal's office scene where Percy like looks through the door and sees the principal talking to somebody who is reportedly, you know, the lightning thief, you know, that's kind of assumed. And suddenly the principal notices Percy and the dream ends. Then we also get our first introduction to the earphone, which is a magical like way of communicating. Instead of phones, we use earphones. Basically, what you have to do is you need to create a rainbow out of like water or mist or something, and you have to throw in a drachma into that rainbow, give a prayer to Iris, who is of course the goddess of rainbow, and then you can speak to whoever you want. And they decide to call camp, and instead of like Chiron showing up, Luke shows up. And basically they tell him that they have a theory about Clarice being the lightning thief, which in my opinion is kind of interesting. Honestly, like the fact that Grover is the one who like kind of comes up with it after having a talk with Ares. It's like we are so close to the correct answer, but also so far away. I kind of love like the intrigue of it, honestly. But also, in my opinion, this kind of does create a loophole, because from what I remember in the books, this whole earphone conversation, which also I think takes place in Los Angeles already, there's no mention of Clarice. Clarice is never suspected to be the lightning thief. And in my opinion, it kind of creates a loophole, because in episode 7, when the big reveal happens, Ares' involvement is treated like a surprise. So why is it a surprise if we already knew that his daughter stole it? Maybe we could have rethinked that, honestly. Maybe we could have just saved the old earphone conversation from the books and just do that, because honestly this kind of doesn't make sense in places. But okay. So also Luke is a Percebeth shipper, confirmed, because he tells Percy and Annabeth that they're already arguing like an old married couple, which is honestly kind of funny. But after that, we basically set all of those animals free, because Grover is an animal rights activist, which we love. We set them free in the middle of the street of Santa Monica, though, so that's funny, honestly. I kind of find this scene very funny, because Grover is like, oh yeah, they're gonna be fine, you know, I gave them the satyr's blessing, and Percy and Annabeth are like, but what about the humans? And Grover's like, oh, what about the humans? I kind of love that he just kind of doesn't give a shit about them. It's really funny to me. But we are here to basically find Hermes. We are told that Hermes has the location of the entrance to the Underworld, so we kind of have to go and talk to him in order to, you know, get that location. And we know that he resides in the Lotus Casino. This is a very interesting change from the books, in my opinion, but I'm gonna talk about it more when we wrap up the entire episode. We enter the Lotus Casino and we hear Dula Peep.
Huh?
Her name's Dua Lipa.
Yeah.
But you call her Dula Peep.
Dula Peepa.
Her name's Dua Lipa, but you call her Dula Peep.
Dula Peepa, I'm sorry.
Dua Lipa and her song Levitating. It's honestly really, really fun. In my opinion, some people were like mad that this wasn't Poker Face by Lady Gaga, but like, are you really surprised that Rick Riordan didn't want to take an element from the very famously horrible movies and implement it into a show of his? You know, like, that was kind of stupid, honestly. So we know that this is where Hermes resides, but we also get explain how the lotus flower works and how it kind of warps your perception of time, but how it also can erase memories. And in my opinion, it's really, really cool. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover decide to split up. Percy and Annabeth go together. Grover goes alone. And we are basically on a search for Hermes. You know, we need to talk to him. Percy and Annabeth do find Hermes when he's in the middle of like a poker round or something. And he goes and talks to them on private. And we get a little bit more of Luke Castellan's backstory. Because if you remember, Luke, where is he? Here is the son of Hermes. So Hermes talks to Annabeth and Percy and is like kind of tells them the story of May Castellan, who is Luke's mother, and how she kind of went mad and how he felt really bad because he couldn't be there for his son and, you know, the woman that he loved. It's a really, I have some thoughts about it because honestly, Hermes talking about parenting, like, come on, okay? You are famously a pretty bad dad and you're over here talking about parenting. Like, okay. And he tells Percy and Annabeth that he's not gonna help them in their mission, and that is just kind of like, he's over there just fully wasting their time and not being helpful at all. But we're gonna get there a little bit later. We're gonna revisit that point because it turns out that he might have helped them. You know, it's kind of weird actually. So the entire Lotus Casino, I kind of enjoyed the design of it, but I don't know if I would personally like to go there because it's just like, it just kind of seems like it's like bars and some random things scattered around. I don't really like it that much personally. Also, you want me to believe that Nico and Bianca were kept in that place for literal decades. Like, those are two underage kids being kept in a casino that is also just like full of bars. I don't think we see like hotel rooms or anything in there. And also, wouldn't Hermes know about them if he runs the casino? Some things are not adding up about this plot, honestly. I hope that they are explained in like season 3. Maybe they will. I hope they will, because honestly, so far, that is a plot hole. But at the same time, as Percy and Annabeth are arguing with Hermes, we get to see Grover, and he meets, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to read this name, Augustus, who is like a satyr that Grover remembers from his childhood, who went on a quest and was kind of lost. And Augustus is like, hey, I found Pan. He's really, really close. And Grover's like, okay. I think I have time to like go and search for Pan, I guess. But turns out that the Pan that Augustus has found is in a VR game. So when Percy and Annabeth go from the meeting with Hermes and they go to find Grover, we find Grover in a VR chat. It's really funny to me, but they basically get Grover out of there, and we come to the realization that actually time passes in the Lotus Casino a little faster than it passes outside of the Lotus Casino. So we have a problem, and we have to go to the Santa Monica beach. We have to meet Percy's dad. Otherwise, we're basically fucked. So it turns out Annabeth was brave enough to try and steal Hermes' car keys. And basically that car can take them anywhere. And she succeeds. She does steal Hermes' car keys. And turns out Hermes knows about it because he's like the god of thieves. So he like knows when, things are being stolen from him. But like, if he knows, then and he has no problem with it because he just like says, okay, he just leaves like a card, and for the nosy kids, like, this car is gonna take you anywhere you kind of want. You just need to drive it out of the parking lot. That is kind of crazy to me because like that means he knew and he allowed this to happen. But then when they talked to him, he refused to help. I don't really understand why that entire conflict was honestly necessary, because like he just lets them get what they want anyway, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. We see Percy attempting to drive, and he also ends up kind of destroying this car, honestly, which is kind of funny. And honestly, Percy, I cannot drive a car either for my goddamn life, so honestly, I feel you. You're not alone. But honestly, this entire scene, I was just feeling very sad for the car because they were just hitting everything, destroying it left and right. And they finally do make it out of that parking lot. And the car transports them into the Santa Monica beach. Percy walks into the water because he is supposed to meet his dad there. But instead, he meets a Nereid because it turns out they spent too much time in the Lotus Casino and 5 days have passed. This basically means that they failed on the quest. They're already too late with it, which is a problem because obviously that means that there's going to be a war between Zeus and Poseidon, which is likely going to destroy everything. So that's great. And the Nereid is like, hey, you did well and your dad is proud of you, but now you should probably return to camp. And Percy's like, what do you mean return to camp, bitch? I cannot return to camp. I have to find this master bolt and I have to save my mom. So the Nereid is like, okay, perfect. Your dad is going to be proud of you. And she gives them 4 pearls that he can use to escape from the underworld. And I have many opinions about this. I have a lot of opinions about this, actually. In the books, there are only 3 pearls that are given to Percy. Basically, the Nereid is like, okay, you go and retrieve the Master Bolt, and then you go and save your mother, which is really, really cool that Poseidon thought about that. But I don't know how to feel about this, because in the books, we had 3 pearls, and we already had basically a conflict set up because somebody would have to sacrifice themselves. You know, it was either going to be Percy and Annabeth Grover, or maybe all 3 of them would use those pearls, and that would mean that Sally Jackson would not be saved. So here, by having 4, we basically eliminate that entire kind of conflict, and instead we are forced to like remake this conflict in the next episode. I don't understand why this change was honestly implemented. I think you can make for a more dramatic episode with 3 pearls. You don't have to add an additional one and then have them discuss in the underworld like who's gonna sacrifice himself. You know, I don't really understand why this was necessary. I guess this is like a minor change and it kind of doesn't change anything in the story whatsoever, but also I don't really like it, honestly. I prefer the original. So we have We're Late and 4 pearls on the board. This is a change from the books, and this is just kind of where we are plot-wise, because it turns out the deadline has passed, and that is how we wrap up episode 6. I personally don't really like this episode that much. I think it's probably my like second least favorite episode of the season, because we still have one more episode to go over that I hate a little bit more than this one. It's just, I think the changes it makes are kind of unnecessary, and sometimes they kind of create like weird plot holes that maybe are gonna be fixed when we get to later seasons, but so far we don't have later seasons to talk about, so they're just plot holes. You know, they're just waiting to be explained, and I don't really understand why even commit to them when you have the books that kind of did it just better. But honestly, the changes aren't like that egregious, because episode 7 exists, and episode 7 makes those changes that happen in episode 6 look like nothing in comparison.
Not in Kansas.
Hey, focus. We left Kansas 4 days ago.
Just as a precaution, you know, before going into episode 7, typically I have like a page of notes for each of these episodes, and for episode 7 I have 3 pages of notes. That's how you know that I had a lot of fucking opinions about this episode. This episode is both my favorite of the entire season and also my least favorite of the entire season, because it's divided basically between like 2 sections. There are the flashbacks that this episode contains, and there's the actual like plot of it all, you know, us going to the underworld to retrieve the Master Bolt. And everything related to the flashbacks, I fucking love. Those flashbacks are the best scenes that this entire show has produced. But the actual plot elements of this episode are whack, in my opinion. Percy kicks off this episode by entering Krusty's mattress shop, which I hate. How does he know that this is like the actual Krusty and what he does and everything? Like, I guess maybe they know it from Hermes or something, but like, I don't understand why you would do this. Why is Krusty the one like guarding the entrance to the underworld? Because it's basically Percy walks in and he does an entire exposition for us, and he's like, hey, I know who you are. You are pro something. I forgot his name, honestly. I'm really, really bad with names. And he's like, I know that you're guarding the entrance to the underworld. And that is crazy to me. It just kind of ruins the entire first scene of the show, in my opinion. I don't understand why the Krusty scene was even necessary. Basically, this is a real difference from the books, because here, Krusty, for some reason, is supposed to be guarding the entrance to the underworld. And in the actual books, it's done by Karen, who is, you know, like a servant of Hades. And in my opinion, the show would have benefited from seeing Karen here. I think he would have been such a better addition, and it would have been so cool to actually see him in action, because we don't really get to see him that much. And I just, I don't understand why the Krusty part of this episode was even necessary. So yeah, I just feel like you should guard the entrance to the Underworld not with like a random villain that nobody really remembers, but like with Karen, who is actually somewhat relevant to the plot, you know? Well, in this show, he kind of isn't, but that's besides the point. This entire opening is just not it for me. But then Krusty says some like very, very deep shit about like how parents shape us and cut out parts of us they don't like to make us more like them. And I'm like, okay, philosophical thoughts, Krusty. So Annabeth sneaks up with her invisibility cap on. She pushes Krusty into one of the mattresses. He gets stringed to that mattress, and basically he's in a trap. And Percy, Grover, and Annabeth can enter the Underworld, and the entrance to it is in his office. And here we have a scene of Percy giving away the 4 pearls that he was given by the Nereid. And I also just like knowing what happens next, I'm just like, why did he give them away? Just no. And then we get our first flashback of the episode, where we get our first flashback after this scene, where Sally Jackson has driven Percy to a remote school that he's going to be attending. And she also makes a reference to the Wizard of Oz, which I love. And Percy doesn't want to go. And it's just, this entire flashback is just really painful, because it's clear that like she doesn't want to leave him, but like she knows that this is the best she can do for him, because she cannot keep him safe. He has to be somewhere else. It's just, oh my God. And her having to rationalize that decision. Pain. And how he closes the door so she cannot enter. I don't even know what to say anymore. But these flashbacks, in my opinion, add so much depth to the show. And as I previously mentioned, they are my favorite part of the show. And I kind of wish that we would see something like this in the books, but obviously it's kind of harder to do there. I'm so happy that the show took the creative opportunity to add something more to these characters with these flashbacks. I think that's really cool. That also makes me so excited for future seasons, because we might get flashbacks from like Thalia's perspective, or Luke's perspective, or Annabeth's perspective, or even Nico, or Bianca's, or Zoe's. It's like there's so much potential there. I hope it gets explored. Then we move on. We see Percy, Annabeth, and Grover enter the Underworld. And I'm gonna say this. I love the design of the Underworld. I love that this is like a reverted castle, and that there's this big like wall, and that we also see like basically a desert inside. It's a really, really cool design. It's really imposing. Not how I imagined the Underworld at all, but in my opinion, it's really, really cool. And this is where we encounter Karen, because they're like, hey, we want to pass through the gate. And Karen is like, you're mortals. You cannot. And then Percy gives him money, and suddenly that's not a problem. So why even change you could have just had him in the big... I'm repeating myself at this point, but basically all of that is cute, and basically he gets the money. Karen is happy with the money, but also like Cerberus shows up. So we have a problem, and we have to run, because Cerberus smells mortals, and he doesn't like mortals. Also, the design of Cerberus in this show is just killer to me. It's such a good design. I would love to have like a little Cerberus. You know, like how there was that Netflix show called Chaos, where there basically was the Underworld section. I think his name was Kineas, had like one of those like three-headed puppies. I want one of those. I really want one of those. They're so cute. But basically, Cerberus is a very, very good boy. I really, really love him. Annabeth gives him scratchies. He also eats Grover, which I guess is sad. And that's how Grover loses his pearl, which I kind of hate. But instead, the little stress ball that Grover had brought with him to the Underworld is given to Cerberus, and he can, have fun with it, play with it. And I think Cerberus is a really, really good boy, as I said, and I would really, really love to give him scratchies and, you know, take him on a walk or something, you know, I want one of those. Can you tell that I really don't give a fuck about anything else in this episode aside from the flashbacks and Cerberus? But also, one thing that I noticed whilst rewatching the show is that because Annabeth froze the stress ball at Cerberus and she froze it into the Styx, like the river Styx. Why is that? Like, how is he gonna get that out? Can he just like swim in the Styx? I don't think he can. Also, how did we cross Styx? Like, because we are at the point of the episode where we have 3 pearls. So that was completely unnecessary. Why was this necessary? But before I lose my mind over how bad the actual plot of the episode is, we have another flashback, which honestly is another painful one. Basically, the principal of that school tells Sally that they are reconsidering accepting Percy because he's done some weird shit and like he saw a Pegasus and he went on a roof and they don't know if they should accept him. And Sally gives him a speech as like he has nowhere else to go. Like, I don't know what else to do. So you're gonna have to like find a way to get him into that school because we don't have another option. And Percy basically has a slight glimmer of hope when the principal mentions a possibility of homeschooling. But Sally immediately is just like, no. And his dreams are crushed because he cannot stay with his mom. And it almost seems like his mom wants to just purposely get rid of him. And it's so sad. But after this a very, very sad flashback, we go back to the underworld, unfortunately. And we are like walking through this like weird place that's almost like a woods almost in the middle of the desert, like, okay. But basically they have a talk about, you know, the fact that Grover lost the pearl. Percy gives him another one and he's like, we're not leaving anyone behind, period. Okay, Percy Jackson, he's an ally, I love him. And then suddenly these creepy looking bald people show up and we find out that this place is the Asphodel. I kind of like the concept of these souls in Asphodel being trees because they're tied to the ground by like regrets. It's a really, really interesting concept and actually one of my favorite like design choices that they make around the underworld. Is really, really cool. We get a scene where Annabeth is like grabbed by a root and she cannot move. They cannot free her from it because apparently she has some regrets. We don't find out what those regrets are from what I remember, but she has them. And basically she's like, okay, go with me, go without me, guys. Like, you know, you go complete the mission. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to sacrifice myself, which doesn't really mean that much because she still has the pearl and she can use it as a way out. The ghosts of the Asphodel start approaching and she uses the pearl. She disappears and Percy and Grover just go on their merry way. They go further. I don't know how to feel about this because I honestly would have preferred having Annabeth whilst they encounter Hades. In my opinion, her presence in the books during that scene actually does add something, but she's not there, so that's that. Percy and Grover go along. We go through this desert, and suddenly the shoes that Percy was given by Luke start dragging Grover, because he's wearing them, to like a big hole in the ground. And Percy grabs him. He saves him using his sword, and shoes fly in there. And they hide because they don't want to fall into that hole. And suddenly, when Percy tries to I think he just tries to lay on his back, and he has the backpack from Ares. And suddenly he hears like a metallic clang. And he's like, what the hell is that? He opens the backpack and suddenly he pulls out the Master Bolts. I hate this change so much. I don't understand why he discovers that he has the bolt now. I genuinely don't. Like, wouldn't that reveal be so much more effective if it had happened in front of Hades like it does in the books? Because in the books, it does happen in front of Hades and it's way more effective there, let me tell you. Basically, the entirety of the mystery is just like solved. So basically we find out that Ares is the lightning thief, or rather, well, he isn't, but he was in the possession of the Master Bolt, and he basically gave it away to Percy, and everything suddenly makes sense. Why didn't it happen in front of Hades? It would have been so much more effective. So now we basically have to like choose between the quest and saving Percy's mom. That's a choice that's offered. Basically, Grover says it that like, we have the Master Bolt, we can just go to Olympus and go and give it to Zeus. But also like, Percy's mom is still here and we kind of have to save her. So like, what do we do? And that doesn't result in anything, because this entire conflict that is set up with that question is solved in 20 seconds. And I kid you not, it's literally in 20 seconds. This episode, all of these changes are just making my head spin. But before we go to encounter Hades in his palace, we have our third flashback, our flashback numero 3. Okay, Spanish. Mi gente Latino.
Mi gente Latino.
So Sally and Percy are sitting in this restaurant and she wants to go and pay, but like he's very sad and he doesn't want to talk to her. And she's also sad because she has to like leave him in that school. It's just, this entire thing is just so sad to me. Like, oh my God. Like, it's so hard to watch her trying to get a response out of Percy, but him not wanting to talk to her when she's doing everything she can to protect him. It's just like, oh my God, this world is so cruel. And when finally Percy says something, he says to her, why are you trying to get rid of me? And I would never do this to you. Like, I am unwell. This flashback, I was in tears watching it for the first time. I was in tears watching this for the 7th time when I was preparing for this episode and for this video. It's such a fucking sad flashback. And Sally goes away. She's like, I'm gonna get the bill, and she starts crying too. I'm just like, Sally Jackson, you're doing everything correctly. Like, it's But the flashback basically gets interrupted because we have to go to Hades now for some reason. One thing I will say that I think is pretty positive about this entire scene is that I love the design of Hades Palace. Like, it looks so like a human couldn't live there, but a god could. It's so big and it's just full of like a void, honestly. There's nothing in there. So when Hades starts walking towards them through this like long ass hallway, the entire impact of, you know, them being introduced to Hades is already gone. So we meet Hades, and I think that this is a very interesting change of a character from the books. I don't understand why they wrote him the way they wrote him in this show. Why is he so like campy, open, inviting in this show? Like, where's the Hades from the books that was like foreboding? He was like 3 meters tall. He immediately, the second he meets Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, he threatens them because like they apparently have his like fucking helmet of darkness or whatever. They don't know because they haven't figured out who the actual thief was, and that they have the Master Bolt with them because Ares gave it to them. This entire scene just does not work for me. And also, you know what's the funnier thing too is we technically don't know that Hades was also not in possession of his helmet of darkness at the time. That it was stolen from him. But technically, had Grover and Percy went back to the actual world, and when it had Percy fought Ares and retrieved the helmet, this entire interaction with Hades that we're having to talk about right now would genuinely be pointless. Like, this didn't even have to happen in the show because we already know who stole the bolt. We just can go and he's likely gonna show up and we still gonna defeat. Like, nothing would change if we just didn't go and see Hades. Like, Hades in the show is just so not threatening at all. He's like, please give it to me. I don't know. He's written the way that I would imagine like Hermes to be written. I just really, really don't like this change. Where is the Hades that would genuinely mop the floor with Percy and his friends? I want that Hades. I don't want this fucking Hades from Temu. By the time they start talking and Percy mentions that he has the Master Bolt and they found out that the Helmet of Darkness was also stolen from Hades, like book Hades would have already eviscerated these two twice or maybe even 3 times actually. And also, for some reason, Percy starts connecting the dots here and he finds out that Kronos is behind this. Why here? Like, I get that we have to have some sort of twist in front of Hades, but guess what? You could have saved the reveal of the Master Bolt for Hades and them connecting the dots that it's Ares, and it would have been fucking fine. And then Hades does something that book Hades would never do, and also that I feel like is kind of forbidden too, because he's like, okay, give me the Master Bolt, and Percy's like, what? And Hades is like, I'm gonna need it to protect myself if it's Kronos, because then the war is coming. But like, technically, gods are forbidden from stealing each other's symbols of power. So why does Hades want the Master Bolt, which belongs to Zeus and is his like symbol of power? Nothing about this just makes sense to me. I hate this so much. I'm gonna read you some of the notes that I have for this, okay? First, I have Kronos being the bad guy reveal is so underwhelming. In front of Hades. Jesus, why? Why does he now need the bolt to protect himself? What the fuck, girl? This stupid ass. I hate this version of Hades. That just kind of sums up my entire like view on this scene and on this entire episode. I just think that this is so poorly adapted, and every single change they make to like adapt the story to a show just makes it everything look worse, especially if you've read the books. If you have not read the books, this might sound fine, but even then it's plain stupid. After this, thank God, we get our 4th and final flashback of the episode, which contains the scene of Sally Jackson praying to Poseidon with a drink and a match, which is honestly kind of fun. And the way that he just comes immediately, like you see like a storm suddenly happens and then it kind of fades away and he's there because he knows Sally is struggling. Honestly, they should have been endgame. I don't care. Is this a good place to mention that Poseidon in the show is like very, very attractive? Like, he is hot. I don't know what to tell you. So Sally kind of offers to maybe take Percy to camp now, which basically she thinks about that to like protect him, but Poseidon is like, no, not yet. They are not ready for him. And in my opinion, this is all very, very good, right? I like it. But then we get like the actual reveal of Sally's like motives. She wants him at camp because she wants Percy to be safe, but actually she doesn't want him at camp because she thinks that if she gives him away to the demigods and to Chiron, she's gonna lose him forever. It's so sad. She fully admits that she's being egotistical in front of Poseidon, and I love that he basically knows how hard it is for Sally and like how understanding he is. She says a line here, which I have written down. It's, I want him to know who he is before your family tells him who they want him to be. That is a sick line. And then Poseidon goes with yet another killer line. He goes, his mother raised him well. So Sally asks Poseidon whether he wants to talk with Percy, but he is basically like, I cannot. It's forbidden and you know it, and I could get in a lot of trouble, and he is basically not able to, and there's also still like that storm in the background. My marker just fell, great. But this entire scene is just so sad from both of their perspectives, honestly. I still think Poseidon is kind of an asshole, and I genuinely like the gods and their parenting methods. Like, we talked about it with Hermes, like, y'all know nothing, honestly. But I just love this scene so much. It's probably my favorite flashback of the entire show at this point. And then we get the ending of the episode. You know, Percy and Grover escape from Hades using the pearls. Sally Jackson stays there, and we suddenly appear at Montauk. You know, the beach that is very close to Camp Half-Blood. This is another change from the books, because like I think in the books, the fight takes place at Santa Monica, and then they have to like fly to New York and, go to Olympus and Camp Half-Blood, whatever. And I actually think that this change is this is honestly kind of the only change in the entire episode that I'm fine with. So we have new additions to the board. We have Kronos and Ares bad because we found that out in Hades's kingdom in the Underworld. And we also have I hate episode 7 because every single change that it implements, aside from them appearing at the Montauk beach, is horrible. And I just kind of hate it. This episode is the worst episode of the season, but for some reason it also contains the best scenes of the entire show with the flashbacks, and it's kind of infuriating because I would just love to hate on it fully, but I can't because those scenes exist. We go to episode 8 after this.
Because I'm 90% sure it's Pete.
Percy Jackson.
And this episode opens with Luke doing a parallel of Percy's speech about being a demigod. The foreshadowing and the connection and the meaning behind that. I don't know who was in that writer's room, but they cooked. This is also kind of another flashback because we get to see Percy and Luke training, and I kind of like that, honestly. Then after that flashback where basically, Luke and Percy train a little, they talk a little bit more, and Luke's ideology is kind of faced against Percy's a little bit. It's slight foreshadowing, I guess, but after all of that, we go back to Montauk where Annabeth, Percy, and Grover have teleported back from the Underworld too, and Ares also appears there with a sword in hand. And basically, I think that this entire scene, I think, is better done in the show. Ares is like, hey, I'm not gonna let you go away. And Percy challenges him to a duel, basically to first blood, and whoever wins gets to, dictate what the opposing side does. If Percy loses, Ares can take the Master Bolt, probably kill him, whatever. And if Percy wins, Ares has to give away Hades's helmet that he also is in possession of. So the entire the rules around this battle, in my opinion, are better done in the show because it's to first blood. And from what I remember in the books, it's actually to the death, which you cannot kill a god, so that would be strange. This fight is extremely cool. I think that Ares is extremely terrifying, but we also get to see, Percy's water bending moments, his Kitara moments, his Korra moments. And I honestly kind of love that. I just love this. Everything about this fight is great. And of course, Percy prevails. He hurts Ares in, I think in the leg. I don't remember where exactly, but basically he hurts Ares and Ares has to, concede. So we get Hades's helmet of darkness again, and Percy suddenly notices that in the little hut on the beach that he and his mom were supposed to spend the weekend in, suddenly a light appears inside. And then suddenly Mrs. Dodds shows up for the third time in the show already. He gives her the helmet of darkness, which by the way is very ugly, but honestly kind of love the design of it still. And Mrs. Dodds fully just goes hey, you're a decent demigod, honestly. Not Mrs. Dodds warming up to Percy. He killed her twice, by the way. But basically after this, Percy decides that he has to go to Olympus to give back the Master Bolt to Zeus, and Annabeth gives him his necklace for good luck, which is just the cutest possible detail, honestly. I think in the books she does that before the Ares fights, but here she does it now. That honestly doesn't really matter. That's a minor change that honestly, in my opinion, is fine either way you do it. We get to see Percy Jackson enter the Olympus. The design of that place is sick. It's probably my favorite environment, aside from Camp Half-Blood, that we get to explore in this entire show. It's so sick. It genuinely looks so imposing, but also just how is that even there? Crazy. And when we are at Olympus, we also see some intersecting scenes with, Percy walking through Olympus. And we also see some flashbacks from his training with Luke. And I love that we get to see more parallels between the two because honestly, they are so similar but so different at the same time. And I love that Luke uses the Annabeth and spiders as a metaphor for gods and demigods. Like, that is smart writing because the gods, they are powerful, just like Annabeth is. She's way taller, but the spiders can be scary. And so can the demigods. Demigods can be terrifying for the gods if they are not able to control them. So, in my opinion, all of that is just great. And it also kind of tells us that Annabeth has arachnophobia, which we don't find out through the Tunnel of Love scene. But again, I don't really mind it all that much, honestly. I love this parallel, and I love this metaphor too. Their writers were on some good shit whilst writing episode 8. That's all I'm gonna say. We meet the king of the gods, Zeus, who is of course portrayed by the late Lance Reddick, who will be deeply and dearly missed by the entire Percy Jackson community. He was an incredible Zeus. He's also been in so many incredible movies and shows. And I wish that we had gotten to see more of him as Zeus, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. And even the short little time we had with him as our Zeus, in my opinion, was already really, really special because I love his portrayal of Zeus. He gives him so many dimensions in such a short time. It's crazy. Like, that man was so devilishly talented. He's prideful, he's dangerous, but also weirdly, at times, he's almost like likable. And you can almost feel like Percy is at times like at the wrong for like pushing buttons. But basically, Percy gives him back the Master Bolt. And Zeus is like, okay, I'm gonna let you leave. And Percy starts reading his ass. And Zeus is like, fuck you, and tries to kill him. And then Poseidon shows up and saves his son. And I love this entire scene. And then he also like surrenders because we are still at war, which I completely forgot about, by the way. So that's happened. He surrenders the war. I don't know what he lost by surrendering, but he does. I kind of hate that Zeus still cares about that. Like, we have more important business to take care of. Poseidon gets to talk with Zeus in ancient Greek, or just in Greek. I actually don't know if it's in ancient Greek. I doubt that it is, but Percy only catches a few words from it. And then after that, Zeus disappears and Poseidon gets to have a quick little chit chat with his son for the first time. And it's a really, really cool scene, especially because they genuinely look like father and son. Like, if you put those two actors together and told me that they're like actual biological family, I would believe you. Poseidon kind of points out that Percy is a little impulsive and he doesn't really like to be controlled. And he gives us one of the most iconic lines of the entire show, that of course being, the sea doesn't like to be restrained. Like, iconic. Love it. Also, it turns out that Percy catched a few words from that, little talk Poseidon and Zeus had in Greek because Sally Jackson taught him a little. Like, we stand Sally Jackson. Then Percy also asks a really, really good question to Poseidon. This is, again, not in the books, but I love it. He basically asks, do gods dream? I love that this is an actual question because basically Poseidon then mocks Ares and is like, yeah, of course we do. And basically, if you don't know, Ares was controlled slightly by Kronos through his dreams. I think it's honestly such a smart question to ask at this point. It kind of adds more to the world building, kind of explains why Ares did what he did. Great, great writing. And then Percy decides to be a menace and asks Poseidon whether he dreams about his mom. And Poseidon kind of just doesn't answer, and he uses the pearl on Percy to cut the conversation. Poseidon, when I catch you. We go back to camp, and we are a hero now. Percy is a hero because he retrieved the Master Bolt. He came back from the mission. All Annabeth, Grover, and Percy came back. And Annabeth hugs him. Everybody's like cheering. Everybody's happy except for Clarice. She's not. And by the way, Percy notices that Clarice has not been like locked up or anything, despite the fact that they figured out that she is the lightning thief, that she stole Zeus's, weapon. And Luke and Annabeth talk with him and they're like, we cannot just like restrain her because, an accusation without proof can start a war in this camp. And I'm like, okay, but it's like, what do you mean an accusation can start a war at camp? Like, camp is a pretty much a very controllable environment, honestly. Like, if Clarice did something bad, you should lock her up. I don't think all of the Ares kids are going to be like, oh my God, no, we now have to kill everybody. And everybody's like, no, we have to kill everybody. Like, I feel like you guys are just kind of over exaggerating, honestly. And you also don't have to like tell the people, you know, you can just call Clarice to like decide, have her quietly be like captured, and then tell everybody that she is on some secret mission or something. Like, you really don't... I feel like that's just a stupid reason to not tell everybody, but like, okay. But there is a celebration with fireworks. Percy walks into the woods and Luke catches him there. He has his sword and basically he starts talking, and Percy starts connecting the dots once again because he's a smart boy, and he figures out that indeed Luke didn't tell anybody about Clarice because he is the lightning thief. I kind of like that this scene happens here because in the books, Luke waits the entire like summer to kill Percy on the last day. And here he does it immediately after he returns, which in my opinion is a way smarter strategy than just like waiting 2 months. Like, he's gonna be stronger after those 2 months. I think that's kind of stupid. So basically, Luke and Percy start their little sword fight, and when Percy accidentally hurts Luke, he's immediately like, oh my God, no, I didn't mean it. And Luke immediately retaliates and pushes him. And it's just so crazy. Also, I love the change that he doesn't want to kill Percy here. He's like, no, I want to recruit you. Join my cause. You know, let's go and free Kronos. And then he like draws something on like a stone, and suddenly a secret gate opens, which is just kind of crazy. Like, okay, we have secret doors, teleportation devices now. Where was all of that at the beginning of the season when we needed to like get to Los Angeles? And then Luke kind of just explains why he doesn't like the gods and why he wants to overthrow them. And basically, the reasons he gives are kind of stupid. Like, I get why he wants to do what he wants to do. You know, I absolutely understand because the gods suck. But also, it's like, yeah, if they want us to like worship them and they don't care about us, the alternative is freeing some monsters and destroying the world. Like, make it make sense. It's so crazy because Luke is so correct in what he does, but also so wrong at the same time. Because yeah, the gods suck, but the alternative to, you know, I don't know, standing up to them is not fucking freeing Kronos. Also, Percy kind of, you know, doesn't know how to read the room, and he tells Luke that he met his dad. And we famously know that Luke doesn't like his dad and that he's mad at him. And then basically Annabeth shows up in her invisibility cap. She tells Luke that she saw everything. Luke is hurt because, of course, Annabeth is like his sister. She loved him like a brother. And Luke is like, oh. And he just runs away through the secret door. It closes after him. And we don't see Luke again. Honestly, I kind of prefer this scene in the show because in the books, Luke just fully tries to kill Percy with a scorpion that he summons, and the scorpion basically almost kills Percy, and then he uses water to heal himself, and then he just wakes up a couple, you know, days later. I kind of prefer how it's done in the books. I think it has way more momentum and way more dynamics, and I think it's actually way more of a compelling villain reveal. You know, the way that Percy works it out, and then the way that they fight, but also, you know, Percy doesn't want to hurt him because he considers Luke a friend and he wants to set things up straight, but also Luke is crazy, but also Luke is correct in what he thinks, but also the shit that he does is just whack. Like, I love everything about how this is done in the show. I also love that Annabeth gets to witness all of that. I love that my notes here are work Annabeth. Haha, fuck you, loser. She said Alexa play Man-Child by Sabrina Carpenter, and he runs away like a pussy. The next day, Percy is packing his stuff. Basically, he gets offered a choice to either stay at camp or go back to his mom and go to like a regular school. And he basically, it's kind of implied that he already made that choice, but Chiron comes to speak with him. I love that Chiron basically calls out Percy for agreeing with Luke on some front, but like doesn't also villainize him for it. Like he understands why, but he also knows that Percy isn't Luke. You know, they think similarly, but they do drastically different things. Then Dionysus shows up and he kind of ruins the moment, but okay, I don't really care about him. We also get a Peter Johnson reference here because basically Dionysus refuses to remember what Percy's actual name is. And he's like, oh, Peter Johnson. And then Percy is like, no, I am Percy Jackson. And it's supposed to be like this badass scene. It's not. It's really silly in my opinion. Then we go to the border of camp where Annabeth, in a new hairstyle, which we love, is basically talking with Percy. And also Grover shows up a little bit later, and Annabeth basically decided to go back home for the school year. She decides to give her dad another chance, despite the fact that, you know, he wasn't that good to her. And I kind of love that, you know, her trying to make things right with her family. I kind of love that. And I also love how she doesn't know what Disney World is. And Percy's like, okay, we're gonna have a lot of things to catch up on. Just like in the Tunnel of Love scene. I forgot to mention that because I think that's where Annabeth is like, I've never watched a movie. And Percy's like, oh no, we gotta work on that. Then Grover shows up with his new searcher's license, which is a flower, which is really cute. I kind of like that. And then they make a pact to meet up at the same spot next year for season 2. I will cry when that scene happens in season 2. Because we know it will. It 100% will in the last episode. And I will be sobbing. And then we get this like very weird scene of like Percy reuniting with his mom. You know, he goes back to Montauk to the hut and he sees his mom. He hugs her and then she starts talking with the voice that Kronos uses. And turns out it's been a couple like weeks, a couple months, honestly, at that point. I kind of dislike that we actually never get to see like the reunion. I kind of wish that we got to see like a reunion of Sally and Percy. I think that would be special without Kronos just interrupting it and it all turning out to be a dream. But also like Kronos is a sick bitch for that and I kind of respect it. I love how we get to see that their life is finally getting normal, but at the same time those dreams kind of persist and Kronos still keeps haunting Percy in his dreams and they keep a note of what he says in those dreams, which is kind of fun. And yeah, I also really find it really funny that Percy calls Kronos grandpa. Like, okay, basically Sally and Percy live together. Sally makes him blue pancakes, which is amazing to see as a Percy Jackson fan. You know, blue food is very important to this franchise. Just in general, this entire closing monologue, this entire closing scene, everything about this is perfect. And we are almost done with the entire show. But then we get a small little scene at the end of the episode where Gabe suddenly finds a weird package that is mailed to his apartment. And whatever was in that mysterious little package, aka the head of Medusa, is later used against Gabe. He dead. Finally. And then we're basically done. We have 2 more things added to the board. Luke is the lightning thief, and we have Luke doesn't want to kill Percy because those are, this is a change from the book, and this is our last like actual main plot point, I want to say. And we're done. This is the end of season 1 and book 1 as well. I do, however, have some like final thoughts about the actual show, about the actual season. I think the season is good and some changes were necessary. You, of course, cannot adapt the book like word for word, scene for scene. It's just not going to be possible. So in my opinion, some changes to make the show slightly more dramatic were necessary, but I wouldn't say some of them were like executed to the best. I think the entirety of episode 7 is basically proof of that. I think other changes in other episodes are typically fine. These ones specifically in episode 7, I hate it with a burning passion. However, I do think that this first season does give, justice to the book. We finally have a good adaptation of the first book, and we're likely going to have adaptations of more books. The Sea of Monsters and, of course, The Curse of the Titan are on their way, and I'm very, very excited for them. I think that this season 1 is pretty inoffensive, but it's a great building block for the future seasons. I think after doing this, they're gonna be able to make bolder choices in production or script writing, and I think it's gonna be way better. I think this season was just kind of testing the waters, and because it was such a success, it's gonna lead to them taking more risks and making more interesting creative choices in the future seasons. And I'm very, very excited for that. In my opinion, the cinematography was really, really good. And I think the writing was slightly stale in places, but even though I still liked it in other places. And I think all of those things are going to be improved in the future seasons. Because now we reached the point of the video where I do want to talk about season 2, which is currently underway. It's coming out in December. We already have a trailer for it. And from what we know from the trailer, it already looks like the cinematography of it all is going to be twice as good as it was in season 1. And I think the visuals are gonna be so sick. I do think that there are gonna be some cuts in the story of season 2. I personally don't really know which ones particularly I would like see being cut. I think maybe we won't see like the Hydra scene maybe, because I know that the sirens have to be there. And I'm also very, very nervous about how they execute the siren scene. I think because it's really, really important. Obviously, you know, the chariots are gonna be there. Polyphemus is, of course, the big villain, so we're gonna have to have him there. I think the Hydra scene is like the only thing that actually stands out in my mind as something that we can possibly cut and just like work our way around. Also, just like analyzing this trailer, there are some things that stand out to me. Like, for example, Luke being dressed like Sue Sylvester. And that's how Sue sees it.
And that's how Sue sees it.
I kind of like that he is shown poisoning the Thalia tree. Like, he just fully stabs the tree. Like, he stabs his friend. The symbolism in that. Ooh. I'm gonna be insufferable when that season comes out. I am interested to also see Allison. She is supposedly an original character that's going to be added in the show. We don't really know what her deal is. I am assuming that she's a kid of Apollo because we see her with a bow and arrows. She also could be a huntress of Artemis. That is also a possibility. I think that could be a great setup for season 3. But we are not sure. And until we see the show, I doubt that we will be able to tell who Allison is or who she supports. I'm assuming that she's with Luke, but also I don't know. I think whilst this season was very much focused on Percy because he's the main hero and all that, I think season 2 is gonna be focused more on Annabeth and her kind of emotional journeys with, you know, Percy of course is gonna still be the main hero, but I think we're gonna see so much more of Annabeth, and the trailer kind of points us in that direction. Like, there are so many Annabeth scenes in that trailer. And also she gets the siren scene in the books, and that's likely gonna happen in the show. Like, she's gonna have a lot to do, and I'm so excited because we're gonna get to meet her in so many new like situations. We're gonna see her in so many new environments, and we're gonna see her handle so many different emotions. I think it's gonna be so much fun, and it's gonna endear so many more viewers to the character of Annabeth. Some criticism I remember towards Annabeth's character in season 1 was that she was a little stale, a little too cold, a little too standoffish. I feel like season 2 is gonna be the perfect way to like endear more audiences to Annabeth. I also feel like the writing is going to be so much better. They've been talking about how there is going to be so much more vulnerability this season, and I cannot wait to see that. I am also slightly worried that we see no Sally Jackson in the trailer. Like, she better be there. The only reason why I'm watching this show is to see Sally Jackson at this point. I'm just joking. Of course I'm joking, but like, I need Sally Jackson, okay? We also get to see the fucking Grey sisters being Percebeth shippers. That entire scene in the trailer is just incredible to me. And to accompany the trailer, we also had a message recorded by Grover, which is basically like, Percy, come get me, come help me, which is a really, really great like promotional strategy. I really, really love that. I also think that just in general, the budget seems to be bigger. The cast seems to be on their A game. I'm just so excited for season 2. And I am even more excited for what's to come after season 2, because book 3 is my favorite book of the original 5. It's The Curse of the Titan, or The Titan's Curse. I forgot what is the English translation of it, which doesn't really place me in a good light, honestly, but I've read the Polish version of it, obviously. I am kind of worried for it, honestly, because I think there are gonna be character cuts. I think Selena and Charles Beckendorf are absolutely not making the show because we've already heard from them that there are character cuts. I don't really like that, honestly. I think Selena and Charles are both really, really great characters and I want to see them. I just don't think that they're gonna appear for the first time in season 3, maybe in season 4 or 5. I just need them to appear because their entire story is just, it's really good, especially since they're like basically background characters and they still get to do so much. I mean, Selena has like an actual role in book 5. So like she needs to be there somehow. But also I don't understand like why that's the case, because like in season 2, we have time to introduce new characters like Allison, but we are cutting old ones despite them being like fan favorites. Okay. But also I hope that for the plot, we actually do stick to the books, because whilst season 1 was like a pretty good adaptation, it did make some changes to the story that I personally at times wasn't necessarily a fan of. I feel like some of the twists and the drama enhancing factors the show likes to add to make it more entertaining just work better in the books. And honestly, I also feel like if you just took them out of the books and put them into a show, they would still work. There's also a big conversation to have around Nico and Bianca finally being casted. We got to see the casting the same day that the trailer came out. And I have a quick little message to the fandom, if there are even people watching at this point, because this video is going to be like 2 hours long, probably. I want people to be normal about them. And yes, I mean like normal as in don't be creepy, because specifically Nico, like this kid, he's like 12, maybe 11. I don't know how old Levi is, but like I've already seen some tweets that in my opinion are very, very creepy. So spoilers for season 3 here, because obviously, right? If you don't want no spoilers, feel free to, I don't know, skip a few seconds. But basically, Nico is very, very well liked by this fandom, and he is also in a very popular relationship with this fandom. That, of course, being his relationship with Will Solis. I don't like how we are already taking this kid and we are already shipping him. Like Nico as a character is fine, but when people are using pictures of this kid, small kid, minor, smiling and being like, oh, that's how he looks at Will, and already being, it just kind of gives me the ick. And it's not me being homophobic. I'm literally gay, right? But like, I just find that kind of creepy, and I found it creepy when people were doing it with Percy as well, with Walker and with Leah, because they are still also minors. So in my opinion, that is kind of creepy. Don't do that. Please be normal about those castings. Please don't do that. Like, just I don't know what else I can tell you, honestly. I just want these kids to not be exposed to the creepy behaviors of some of you people in this fandom, like genuinely. And I'm not blaming any of you watching, but like some people in this fandom did act creepy around Percybeth, and some people are acting creepy now around the possible idea of us getting Sol and Jello in a few seasons. So it's just please don't. I also hope that the future seasons, specifically for book 4 and book 5, get greenlit sooner, because we cannot wait another year. I'm so happy that they're already filming season 3. I think the filming is set to like conclude in like March or something, but like we're gonna get it way quicker than we did with season 2, and I'm already really, really into that. I hope season 4 and season 5 get greenlit as soon as like it's possible. I also, just on a personal note, I want all of those seasons to contain as many flashbacks as they can, because I want to get to know these characters more than I did in the books. And I think these flashbacks are the best way to do that. So just in general, these are all my thoughts about the possible future seasons, as well as about, of course, season 1. But I do also want to keep you here for a little bit longer if you still want to listen to me yapping, which I honestly doubt at this point. I want to talk a little bit more about like the premise of Percy Jackson, and maybe unveil why I think this franchise has had such an immense effect on teenagers all around the world, and how it united all of us. I think the entire premise of this book is just perfect. just in general, like you have the Greek gods in the 21st century, you have them walking amongst us, you have them, you know, having kids with mortals, and these kids oftentimes having like ADHD or dyslexia and being labeled as problematic, and then they can find refuge in Camp Half-Blood in order to, you know, ensure that they can make it to adulthood. And I think that there are a few factors, namely two, that I think are the reason why Percy Jackson as a franchise is just so popular with people. The first one I would say is the Greek mythology of it all. Like, this is a standard interest for many people, but there have been examples before and since of trying to make it like more palatable for teenage audiences to retell the stories of Greek mythology. But in my opinion, none of those people who tried that reached the heights of Rick Riordan in that regard. It reignites the interest in so many people, but also I think that it's the way that Riordan did it, it makes it so accessible and easy to understand, even if you have, like me, trouble, you know, remembering some of the names. We also see that some stories can be reinterpreted through that, and the best example of that is Medusa. You know, the way that she's treated in the show and the way that her character is actually pointed out to be a really, really tragic one. The gods, the world building, the characters, all of that creates a perfect world for somebody to dive in. The biggest actual factor, in my opinion, is Camp Half-Blood itself. Camp is like the perfect setting for a fandom. It's a place for misfits, a place for people who maybe don't feel like they belong in other places. I kind of feel like you can see a similar effect in Harry Potter, even though, of course, I hate that woman.
Fuck you. You are ugly.
Alright.
What the hell? What the fuck? What the shit? You are ugly.
But also just like Percy Jackson, I think, has the upper hand as like the superior book series of the two, and also doesn't have a piece of shit author. So that's another point, I guess. Hogwarts, in my opinion, is also that kind of a place. You have the 4 houses that you can belong to based on your character traits or what you like. But in my opinion, all of that like sorting and making a space for everybody, Percy just takes that and turns it up to 11. Every single cabin at camp is so specific so that everybody can find a specific place for themselves. So for example, I've always been a resident of cabin 7 because I am an Apollos kid, like duh. But also just like, depending on what you like, you can be in any cabin you like. You can be a kid of Nemesis, Hebe, Zeus, Hades, Ares, Hermes, Eris. The world is limitless, honestly. That, in my opinion, lends itself very well into fandom spaces. It's relatively easy to make like a Reddit page or Discord server or Facebook page or even a meetup in real life with a world that is so well defined that is supposed to, you know, unite the fans of it. You have all these cabins and places you can like relate to, and when you meet other fans, all you have to say is like, hey, I'm from cabin 7. And already others will know what your possible like likes and dislikes are, what are some of your traits, or, you know, so on and so forth. This makes it so easy to create a space for other demigods. These spaces basically organize themselves. A clear, recognizable brand that is also open for everybody and contains a place for all. That is a key to a healthy and thriving fandom years after the first book got released. And the best thing about it is that this is truly a place for everybody. It's not like Hogwarts where, you know, you have a piece of shit transphobic author who is also very likely homophobic and has a tendency to name certain characters really weird names depending on their race. So this place is truly for everybody. It's for the neurodivergent folks. It's for the queer people. It's for the theater kids. It's for people who don't feel like they belong anywhere else. It's for the people of color. It's a place where everybody can be understood. And that's why, in my opinion, camp is just truly magical. And I think that's why it had such an immense effect on my childhood and also on many different childhoods of people across the entire world. The effect of it is truly immense, and it can be felt every day, even now, years after the first book was released. And I think that just shows the staying power of the Percy Jackson fandom. And I love that I now get to be a part of it. That brings me to the very end of this video. I realized that I've been talking for a long time, and this is probably the longest video on my channel ever because I had a lot of things to say, but I'm so happy that I did it, even if nobody's gonna watch it till the end. I honestly kind of don't care at this point because I got to, get it out of my system and talk about the franchise that I've grown up with and that I basically loved since the very beginning when I first picked up one of those Percy Jackson books. And I want to thank you guys so much for sticking until the end. If you did, please let me know in the comments below what you thought of the video, what maybe I could do better for next videos in this kind of regard. I kind of don't really have a clear idea of how I want to structure them, but I'm going to work on that. And yeah, until then, I want you to take care. I want you to go fight some monsters. And I will see you very, very soon for a new video, which is likely gonna have something to do with the life of a showgirl, because that album, it's the way I haven't even seen the cover of it and it's already life-changing to me. Like, girl. But until a new video drops, I want you to take care and I will see you very, very soon. And yeah, bye.